All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. For today's show, I was joined by Piotr Kruszona. Pete came back to the podcast, and we had a fantastic dialogue centered around the themes of his book, The Messenger, Spiritual Awakening, Higher Consciousness, and the Message of Unity. Now, I'd highly encourage you guys to check out his book. Really dives deeper into a lot of what we talked about in this show. But this conversation in itself is incredibly profound, so much depth, so much messages that speak from love and unity and embarking upon the spiritual journey to live a life with deeper meaning and more purpose. So I hope you guys enjoy this one as much as I did. This won't be the last time you see Pete on the podcast. Him and I could go for hours and hours on end without pause. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And if you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you are on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can also subscribe on Substack, which is mcdermott.substack.com. You get notified of every podcast. If I got some new poetry, other writings, that'll be up there as well. And a special thank you to our one affiliate of the show, the Above Phone. If you are interested in the Above Phone, the link to check that out is in the show notes below. We're taking back our tech, and you can use the code that is listed down there and get a little discount and support the show as well. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, I got tarot readings available. And if you're interested in physical fitness, Iron and Ether coaching program is open, taking a few applications, integrating spirituality and fitness to transform your life. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the podcast with the one and only Piotr Kruszona. Enjoy. Right now, let's continue. We were making the same mistake as the last podcast. We started having a great conversation, and then we don't press record. We miss out on at least a few minutes of good content, and then here we are. Pete, welcome back to the show, brother.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you for inviting me again. It's a pleasure, and I'm glad you gave me that opportunity to perform on your show again. And to explore those deeper topics those deep topics we talked about last time, and we kind of touched on last time, but we maybe didn't have enough time to kind of expand them enough. So I really appreciate the platform again, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say open invitation anytime. Hopefully the second of many conversations because I think we just flow, and the beauty of these conversations is what I was just kind of talking about is I feel like, we had our first one, our second one, we'll dive a little bit deeper. In theory, we could wake up tomorrow, wake up, have another conversation, dive even deeper, right? I think that's the beauty of kind of the stuff that we're talking about because I've noticed kind of on my own exploration, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, it just continues to expand. So it makes the nature of these
Yes,
conversations, I think, almost infinite in their own nature. Like we don't there's no limit, if you will. And I think that's kind of the
there's no
beauty of
limit.
what we're exploring, man. That's the beauty of what we're trying to capture is that can we truly fully capture it? Yes, almost, but there's always a little bit more. So
Yeah.
that's what makes it fun.
I have to tell you something. I've done a couple podcasts since that first podcast with you because that was my
Hmm.
first podcast ever, and I put them on my Facebook page, and my business page, which I'm building because I'm starting my own podcast as well, as I mentioned earlier. And from all the hosts, uh, which people, friends of mine, and some people who know me, they watched those podcasts and they said you've been the best host. The
Hmm.
questions, the approach, the attitude, like the kind of that just making me relax, and giving me, and like kind of directing me towards the right questions and right answers. And I kind of agree that I feel I've now, as we're having this conversation second time, I feel so relaxed. At first time, I just didn't know what to expect. It's like
Hmm.
meeting someone new, yeah, and it's obviously a completely new situation. You feel a bit anxious, what's gonna happen and stuff like that, trying to predict all the possible outcomes. And now I just feel like after having done those a couple of podcasts, I feel like this place is a perfect place for me to kind of explore those topics, and to share those ideas, and to dig deeper in this mysteries of the universe and the mysteries of the world.
Absolutely, bro. Hey, I appreciate that. That's a very I'd say confirming compliment for me because that's what I attempt to do. So I'm glad that's how you feel, and because honestly, it doesn't feel that much different than the type of conversation if we were to go and like meet up for a beer and sit down and have a chat. You know what I mean? Like that. That's
It will
kind of
happen.
yeah. That
It
and
will happen.
that's
I
that.
promise you, it will happen.
I agree, and that to me feels like the vibe in a way that we can do virtually for a podcast. I mean, in a sense, and I think sometimes people make it very formal, and it can be very structured in some ways, but I just like to let it free flow, and I think we're very much interested in the same exact type of topics here. We're exploring the
Yeah.
same thing in what we're trying to do. So I think that makes it easy, and I'm excited to dive deeper, man. I think it's going to be
Mm,
I'm excited to see where we go. And I know you wanted to dive into
mm.
some of the themes of the book in a little bit more in depth and in some of your experiences in a little bit more depth. So, I don't know, is there a place you felt called to kind of start into and where you know, um, maybe based off of what we were talking about in the first show? I mean, there were so many topics
Mm.
expanded on. Um, but I don't know, where do you feel called to kind of start and lead into as we're kind of diving into it a little bit deeper?
So yeah, so basically, the last time we touched on like how the journey started for me, so with the like childhood dreams and stuff, which triggered my curiosity, and it made me realize that there is maybe something more out there, something which
Mm,
I couldn't understand at the time, because as a child, when you have a dreams like this, like about you know possibly some reincarnation kind of going on, you're coming back from some other being, from some other world into a new being, or that dream about the nuclear explosion, which I couldn't have known by back then what the nuclear explosion is. But so that was what triggered my curiosity back then, like what were those dreams, were they some remembrance of the past or the future? And that's how it all kind of started from me. And I've always been very curious child, always over analyzing things, asking
mm,
questions, why things are the way they are. And it kind of led me, uh, when I already had everything which possibly, like we dream of in life, average person would dream of. So I bought my house, I was in a relationship, my daughter was born, I had that, I've graduated, I've had good education, I had a good job, I had money in the bank. And then I've started asking myself, what is this really all about, for me? Is this what the life should be all about? Is is that the final goal? And why I had like existential crisis almost. I went through the existential crisis, like, and asking questions, why am I not happy in this thing? And I realized at some point that maybe this is important. It's all important. We all need that in life. We need home, where we have people who that loves us, and we need a good job, we need money to survive, but I just felt like I can give something more,
mhm,
and all those material things, they didn't matter from me. It doesn't matter how much I would get myself, how much what I would buy, that would not make me happy, and I realized that at some point that the only way for to fill in that gap, to start feeling like to find that happiness is to give something to the world, and I've been kind of on that journey. I felt like I've been on that journey all my life, and it kind of built up to that moment, um which happened in 2024, like when I finally had an opportunity to kind of use my skill, use my talent, and give something to the world. But at the beginning, the way it happened, it was very chaotic, and I and I felt like I had all the answers. At the same time, the answers were not there, and it was a very, very confusing and scary journey to start with.
mm.
All right. but I feel like it kind of um, it started like early 2015 maybe, when I like I just felt like I was totally lost in my life, that was
Hmm.
I felt suicidal almost, I just didn't I couldn't I felt like I was in cage, like a bird in a cage, and I was trapped, so I was going through that cycle of going to work, coming back from work, going through the same kind of routine every day, and I didn't see a point of that, and I felt totally lost. And maybe for some people, I realized that some people this is everything they need in life. Maybe
Hmm.
they feel like, getting a new car, getting a new house, getting a good education. Maybe that is what makes some people happy, and it's okay. And I have to accept that that's how it is. But
Hmm.
this wasn't for me. That I didn't feel like it was enough. And I felt like there was something in me, and I had some deeper calling from the universe, and I was observing how the world was transforming, how it was changing, and I didn't like it. I didn't like how people were uh, behaving to each other. How we're treating each other. I didn't like the idea of some country, starting a new war and killing people. And I could feel the pain of the whole world, and I felt like I had it on my shoulders, and I just didn't know how to change it, and I was trying to find a way. I was trying to find solution, but what individual like myself, what power do we have really to change that world? What power do we have to influence the world? And that's why I was struggling, because I didn't know how to start really. I was
Hmm.
looking for the universe to give me the opportunity to start, where that some trigger, give me some kind of clue, just make, if I'm in a way, if I've got some gift and I can give something to the world, just present for me that opportunity. And I was asking for, uh, and I was so depressed back then. I was so suicidal. And one day I was lying down in my bed, and I was crying, and I was just like, I felt like almost like in, that movie Don't Look Up. Have you watched that? Have you
Hmm.
seen that movie? Don't. So like you got that asteroid heading towards the Earth, and it's also all about to kind of, the world is about to get destroyed, and no one is taking it seriously, and people just get on with their daily lives. They kind of go through the phases of being kind of distracted by the illusion of this whole thing, and they're not seeing the real issues. And I was so irritated, and I was so angry with the whole world, and the leaders, and we discussed that last time as well, yes. And I was thinking, like, why are they all blind? Are these people blind? Why
Hmm.
why nothing is being done about it? Why cannot we just create a society where we live in a harmonious kind of environment, when we love each other and stuff like that? And I could feel all that pain. I could feel like the pain of the whole world is almost on my shoulders. And in a way, that made me realize that we are kind of all connected, and we not separated from each other. Doesn't matter where we come from, and probably that connection doesn't just is not only limited to like people around you, but it's limited, or even the Earth itself. It's kind of it expands across the universe and multiverse probably, and it's all in some mysterious way connected. And what we do here, what we do with our thoughts, what we do with our words, what we do with our actions, not only affects our environment, the environment directly around us, but it affects the whole universe and multiverse in a way. And that's where I realized, that I had to do something to to contribute towards the world and to change it. And I was, like I said, I was lying down in a bed, and I was begging the universe for the answers, and I never, I've never kind of experienced like any. I've experienced maybe like two miracles in my life. One
Hmm.
miracle was when I fall down from the tree when I was, I think, 7 years old,
Hmm.
and I was jumping across the branches on the tree, and I fall down from the tree, and somehow I landed flat on my chest, and I couldn't breathe for for a couple of seconds. When I eventually got up, I managed to take the deep breath in, and I managed to get up from the floor. I ran to my house, and I with tears in my eyes, all the way, screaming all the way, running all the way back to my house, and I said to my parents, "They fall down from that tree," and I kind of. I was scared to get back to the same place, I was scared to get back to the same place and to look up that tree, and when I got back there one day, eventually I pushed myself to get back there. I realized that there is no way. I fall down like from probably like maybe like 10 meters high,
Oh wow.
flat on my chest, and there is no way you could fall down from that tree without hitting one of those branches, like flat on your chest. There's just no way. You would have to either go straight down, and hit your head on the ground. There's no way you would go like flat like this on the ground, and I realized but that something has saved me from dying, and I was there on my own, and we used to play as a kids. We used to play on that tree quite a lot, like with my friends, and for some reason I went there on that day. I went there all by myself. I didn't go there with anyone. And when I fall down, and then when I went there, when I'm back there, and I realized that there's just no way you could fall down in between those branches without hitting one of those branches and dying with your head or your body or breaking something. I didn't break nothing. So
Mm.
I thought that was a miracle. I thought that was a miracle. Something saved me. And another miracle was that night when I was depressed, when I was suicidal, and I actually contemplated suicide back then, and because I was so lost, and I was in such a pain. And in the morning, after having like a rough night's sleep, I woke up, and in my phone there was a tab open, which I didn't open, and there was an information, like one of the tabs was open, and first thing you do always in the morning, you grab the phone. Usually that's what
Hmm.
people do nowadays. So I grabbed that phone, and there was an information, that I don't have to worry about nothing, that I'm on the right path, and the answers will come. And that was the information. That was in one of the tabs that was open, and I was like, I didn't search for anything like that. I remember that I didn't open that tab, and I would remember something like that, and what that meant. And then I realized that something is trying to channel those informations in some mysterious way, and I don't know if you ever experienced any miracles yourself, something out of ordinary, something you cannot explain. But for me, this was so out of ordinary, the same like falling down from that tree. It was so out of the ordinary that I just cannot explain it in any rational way, a part of just describing it as a miracle, basically.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
have you ever experienced anything like that in your life, Evan?
I've had moments that I would say go beyond there's been not moments where it's like I've almost died per se, but there have definitely been moments where it's almost like I remember being in Costa Rica, and I was in college. I was in my last year of college, and I was taking a class in Costa Rica. And so I thought I went down there to take a class and party on the beach. And, I'm in college. I'm gonna have a great time, right? And it ended up being this like life-changing. Um, the class was about like counseling and psychology. It ended up
Mm,
being this deep dive about myself and my own personality and like really looking at the structures of the self, right? So it ended up blowing out my whole sense of identity in a certain aspect. But I remember I had just gotten an acupuncture session done, and I was sitting there with a random like taxi driver, right? Sitting there watching a sunset over the mountain, like over the ocean. And I remember sitting there and just watching the sunset over the water. It was like I left my body and just experienced this pure bliss and harmony and like peace. And it was like, this is what I've been looking for. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know what it is, but it's here and it's in this moment. And it's something that's not material. It's not money, it's not partying, it's not like this is the fulfillment. This is
mm,
what I've been needing because I was very lost in a lot of ways. I didn't like I was in a relationship at the time that wasn't really working. Like I was gonna be going down the traditional career path, and there was a part of me that always kind of like knew there was more out there, but I didn't know how to explain it. And I remember sitting there and like being like having this deep conversation with the random taxi driver. I don't remember his name, but I remember that moment. I don't know what he's up to nowadays, But I remember having that moment and sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is it. This is everything. It's all right here. And it was
Mm,
like that touch of like almost kind of how you described where it's like this is the information like coming to you. It's like this is what I've been needing to see and experience, and here it is. And I don't know how to capture this or explain it rationally, but this is what I'm meant to be connected to and be driven by this sort of purpose here. And
mm,
it was like a sitting with God type of moment, if you will, right?
yeah.
And so that was really the first like I'd say extraordinary out of body like almost peak experience if you were to put it in a psychological term.
Mm,
I would say it was a miraculous moment because it was what I didn't go on that trip looking for that, but it brought me right into sort of I almost attribute that sort of trip into catapulting me onto the path that I've been on, which is, was meant to happen in a lot of ways. So I definitely understand the miraculous moments. And I think for me, I can look at sort of some of my own difficulties and challenges and hardships and crises that have happened. I'm like, okay, a lot of those things are actually necessary for me to experience a miracle and experience this deep fulfillment in order to actually really recognize it and be
mm,
driven by it now. Because without all the
mm,
crisis or the challenge, maybe I wouldn't have been able to sit there in pure stillness and bliss and harmony and recognize it for what it was. Because I think
mm,
I kind of needed to have some of the hardship and challenge of my earlier life in order to actually be on this path now. So it kind of put it all into perspective for me in that moment. And and it sounds very similar to, you kind of waking up and seeing that tab where it's like, oh, okay, I get it. I see it. I understand it.
mm.
Here it is. Like,
Yeah.
now I can use this and kind of move forward, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense, you know. And so do you feel like now when you're doing what you're doing, do you feel like this is exactly the path you're meant to be on? It's been there all way long, you know, waiting for you to be discovered, so you just follow it. Do you feel like this is it?
I think in some aspects, I think the beauty of it, like I think the beauty of it is that there's a part of it to me I feel connected to the path, but there's always elements of unknown too. Like I don't know exactly how this path will unfold in say a year's time or 5 years time, right? I think a lot of the foundations and the structures that we build when we're in alignment with this path, they kind of hold true, and you kind of continually to build on those foundations. Um, but to me, it's allowed me to cultivate a deep sense of faith to navigate the path. Because I think in a lot of ways, even from that moment, I mean, I couldn't have predicted this is what I'd be doing right now. Or even when I started up the podcast, for example, I did it not kind of on a whim to where I knew I wanted to do it. That was 6 years ago, and my initial goal was I think it was 20 episodes. And the reason my goal was 20 episodes was because I read that 95% of podcasts that get started don't reach 20 episodes. So I'm like, all right, let me get to that 20 episode mark. And then I could be the 5%, if you will, right? That was my goal. That was my goal. I mean, that was 6 years ago. To be honest, if you had told me that it would be what it is now, I don't know if I would have believed it. Like I'd be like, oh wow, that's cool. Like, but in a sense, I wouldn't have been able to predict that, right? So,
Mm, mm,
I do think it is what I'm supposed to be doing now. How does that look down the road? I don't exactly know, but I've been able to develop as I follow the path, even as different challenges and things come up along it. I've been able to develop a level of faith, which guides me through the parts where there are more uncertainty or there are more challenges that come up. And it's like, oh, okay, this is all necessary in some aspects, and I can
mm,
continue to kind of be myself and have faith in myself to navigate the uncertainties of my experience because I don't always know. So but it does feel like the aligned path, and what I'm doing is part of that aligned path. And I think everything you're doing, it falls in that same category. It's the aligned path.
Mhm.
Like this is what you're meant to be
Mhm.
doing. How does it
All
develop and
right.
cultivate? I mean, that's the beauty of it is we kind of get to decide that. And I think as long as we stay
Mhm.
aligned, then it develops in the way that it's meant to, and it expresses itself in the way that it's meant to.
Mhm. So do you think that that path is predetermined, or is it you creating your own reality by taking certain
Ooh.
steps? Because you see, recently I've been going through like a almost like a crisis as well
Mm-hmm.
in a way, because as I finally have a platform to express myself in my
Mm-hmm.
life, and I finally can in a way contribute towards some collective awakening and change, which I've been thinking about it a lot, and I was thinking like, who's gonna listen to me? Who am I? Anyway, who am I? What one person? How one person can influence the world? What one person's thinking on or words or even writing can do to the collective change? How it can influence the collective change. And I've been asking myself, like how I can communicate that knowledge as well, so it doesn't come across like I'm trying to sell the books, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. I am in a way because it's a message, but it's not even about me. It's about the
Yep.
message. And how to not be humiliated when you do that. How to, because people will criticize you, they will humiliate you. They will laugh at you. They will think you're making things up. And I just leave it up to the listener or the reader to decide, is this true or not? Because you have to either believe that everything I wrote about is true, or you don't believe in nothing, because
Mm.
you cannot think that half of it is true, half of it is made up. And what is truth anyway? And what are we really trying to do? What are we trying to do doing those podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
writing the books, or what are you trying to do, you as an individual? Why did you start the podcast? Just try to answer that question. What are you really trying to do? What you were trying to do? What was the initial trigger?
Mm. I would say the initial trigger, initially for me, I also love the predetermined question, and I'm going to answer that in a second because I think about that a lot. Um, I think for me, my initial calling to a podcast was there were things that I was interested in, and it gave me the opportunity to go and find people and talk to people and let me learn, right? So like
Mhm.
anytime I engage in a conversation, like especially when I was starting this, I feel like I didn't know anything. Like I kind of had some ideas and some knowledge, but I felt like I knew nothing. So me going onto a podcast was me trying to learn and me trying to ask questions so that I could start to figure this shit out, right? Like that's
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was trying to do. And so in a way, I still kind of take the same approach. Like I have some knowledge and I have some ideas, and I think my foundation is like pretty solid. Like I think I've got a decent amount of things figured out over the years, but in the same sense, I still don't have all the answers. So it's like kind of exploring these mysteries, and I learn along the way, and maybe the listeners learn along the way. And over time, we just kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper and, deeper, and we kind of figure it out along the way. So that's kind of was my original calling towards podcasting at least. And I
Hmm.
figured, and the feedback I've gotten over the years is it kind of holds true to that. And I think, people do come in and they learn. And, so, sometimes I'll do a solo podcast and I'm exploring a topic on myself, but I take the same approach. It's like, all right, I have these ideas. Let's try and formulate it into one cohesive structure, if you will. And, it usually turns into that. And I still learn in that process too, because, anytime you're
Hmm.
playing with your own thoughts and you're trying to connect different pieces, you end up having a beautiful exploration, right? So to me,
Yeah.
podcasting has been almost an exploration. And so,
Hmm.
and I think that's kind of what I end up doing with my conversations. And then in terms of the predetermined question, I am a believer in creating one's own reality, but in a sense, it's
Hmm.
almost paradoxical because I do think there are elements that are predetermined. One of the weird experiences I've had over the years is I've noticed this a few times, and I'll have dreams about something. I remember the first time this happened was when I was a kid. I had a dream about being with um, So I grew up in a town on the East Coast called Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it was about 8 hours from where my family friends lived. They lived at the very top of Maine, right? So it was this long drive, and they they grew up around me, but then when I was about 7 or 8 years old, they had moved up there. I remember the first time I went to visit them, we met them halfway, and then I rode up with them the rest of the way. Um, but at one point, I had had a dream about that town and the setting that they lived in and experiencing it. Because when I first showed up at their town, and I remember we were turning around this like road into town, I had this vivid like flashback of a dream of doing that exact same thing and being there. And I
Like a
recognized all,
deja vu
yeah,
kind of thing, yes.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
recognized all the buildings. I recognized the setting. And I remember saying, I'm like, oh, I've been here before. And they look at me and they go, no, you
Mhm.
haven't. You've not been like
Mhm.
you have not. And I guess, yeah, in the body, I had never been there. Right. And
Yeah.
there's been a few moments where I experience something and I remember it already happening, like right before it happens.
Mhm.
And there's a few vivid dreams that I've had over the years, right? That almost go and prevent me from doing things because I don't like a good example. I remember when I was a kid, I had this vivid dream that I ended up dying in the dream in a motorcycle accident, right? And I've always liked the idea of riding a motorcycle, but that dream was so vivid, and I know I've experienced dreams that like have happened in my reality, so I'm like maybe I'm not meant to hop on a motorcycle, right? I don't want that to be a pre I want to create my
Mhm.
reality so that predetermined dream doesn't come to fruition, right? It's a little bit of
Mhm.
paranoia, maybe, probably. However, I could see because I've experienced these things, I'm like, well, I probably shouldn't do that because that dream might become a reality. And I was dead in the
Mhm.
dream and walking around trying to get people to see me and nobody could. Um, so I've almost had these like tastes of, all right, I've experienced this before. And then to me, when that happens, I usually view it as, okay, so this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like those moments of like deja vu. It's almost like, okay, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is like what I kind of signed up for ahead of time. But it does make you question, like, all right, well, how much free will in creating my reality do I actually have here? Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm creating it, but then in some aspects, it's like, okay, well, maybe I'm not. If I've already kind of seen some of these things, and it comes back like in the moment, and I recognize, oh, I've kind of already seen this. I've already done this. I remember this dream. I remember, So I struggle with that question because I don't fully know. I tend to think we have infinite
Mm.
creative potential, but then if we stray from the path that we're supposed to, I mean, can we stray from the path that we're supposed to? Is it all predetermined? I don't necessarily know.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's a valid question. I don't think we, even if it is predetermined in some aspects, I don't think we lose the true creative ability in a sense where we can still feel
Mm.
empowered in creating reality and we think it's our
Mm.
choice, but I mean maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, do you have thoughts on that? Where you kind of lean towards?
There is, regarding this, all I can say is like you said that this journey of yours is being triggered by curiosity and to answer all those questions. Really, yes, the same like with me.
Yeah.
You want to know. So what we're trying to answer, really, we might never get the answer whether or maybe not our during our lifetimes whether there are other dimensions, whether
Mhm.
there is God, whether there is alien life, which is so advanced, like, I mean, if we can call our civilization advanced, in a way, maybe we technologically advanced, whether we spiritually advanced, I'm not so sure about that. But anyway, let's call us advanced, okay? Whether there are other civilizations like that, we might never get the answer who built the pyramids. We
Right.
might never get the answer whether there was any advanced civilization before our civilization, before 6,000 years ago, maybe like back 30,000 years ago. We might never be able to answer those questions. The question which we're really trying to answer is, why does it matter? And that's what average human being would try to navigate and answer. Why does it matter? And why do we want to know?
Hmm.
What would it change if we knew there's a God? You can prove that now. What does it change? How does it
Mm.
influence your life? What about then free choice? What about what about our actions, our decisions, our thoughts? What if this is all connected? What if, your action and your thoughts, your energy affects the whole universe? You individually can change, influence the universe. And all of it, I believe, and I came to the conclusion in 2024 is and that's why I feel like the pyramids are the most important message. Those structures are the most important structures, and the message from that previous civilization, uh, doesn't matter how old that civilization was and how far back it was. Like, that's the message, the most important message there is on our planet. And what is encoded in those pyramids is the principle of harmonic resonance. And that's, you see, how I came to that conclusion. So it all started, like I said, in 2024. I was watching a podcast
Mm-hmm.
between Joe Rogan and Christopher Dunn. Okay. And during that podcast, Christopher Dunn is explaining, that the pyramid is like a nuclear power plant, for which creates the free energy. So there is via piezoelectric effect, okay, and a uh, and the nuclear fusion, which is triggered by mix of chemicals in a queen's chamber. They creating some controlled nuclear fusion, uh, which then is creating that free energy by and amplifying that free energy by that via that piezoelectric effect. Okay, so basically the nuclear fusion compresses the quartz in the granite, and that creates like electric charge. Okay, which then is being emitted into the atmosphere, and is, I believe, like, and he kind of suggested that too, that it's being transformed across the globe via obelisks into the other structures, like a pyramid structures. And when I watched that podcast, obviously it was nothing kind of new. He said, because Tesla already, he had those thoughts, and he kind of made that discovery that everything in the universe is if you want to know the secret of the universe, you have to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And
Mm-hmm.
every structure, like the pyramid, for example, emits. It's got some creates some vibration, and it's got it creates certain frequencies and certain energy. Okay, so what they actually try to encode in those pyramids, they try to encode the secret of the universe, really, and that everything, that energy of one affects another, and that's a principle of harmonic resonance. Okay, so that principle of mathematical harmonic resonance indicates, and the way you can explain it is that the energy and the vibration of one affects another.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so by generating energy of the universe and the resonance of the earth, they were able to then convert that energy into like a magnetic field, and that magnetic field of one structure affected magnetic field of another structure, and the energy density, which those two magnetic fields connect, that energy density area, which is vesica Pisces area, which is encoded in a flower of life symbol, uh, is the it probably created some energy density. That's my kind of understanding of it. And like I said, I'm not a I don't have degree in science, or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. So all I can say it from my own interpretation and my own experience, and what led me to those conclusions. So let's just focus on that podcast. I want to go back to the podcast. So I watched that podcast, and the same night after the podcast, I just couldn't. What I realized when I watched that podcast is, first of all, that the Egyptians didn't build those pyramids. They couldn't have built them because they didn't have the technology to build structures like this. We couldn't build those structures now with our
Mm-hmm.
technology. And obviously, you've got those drill holes, you've got the water, water erosion marks, you know. So then I started like connecting the dots, and I thought, okay, now if the water erosion marks are there, and it's not been like significant rainfall on Sahara Desert for last 13,000 of years, or to
Hmm.
11,000, 11 between 11, 13 to 11, 11,500 years, those structures must have been there before that. They must have been built well before that in order for that water erosion marks to be there. Okay, so what that means is that not only the Egyptians didn't build them, okay, they didn't build them because they didn't have and they probably didn't have, they inherited them. That's how I concluded. You know, and that was my kind of. I never been kind of interested in those topics before, so it was my kind of self, like, thought and self analyzing, like what this is all about, trying to connect the dots. And I realized that they didn't build them. What that means is that whoever built them must have built them not 11,000 years ago, when people were uh, where people were still, you know, considered to be like mostly hunter gatherers.
Hmm.
They couldn't have built structures like that. They must have built, probably whoever built them, they probably built them before the ice age. Okay, and when there was like a global cataclysm, and the ice melted, you know, then the huge flood swept through the Sahara Desert, and it left those water erosion marks, significant water erosion marks on those, which means basically that those pyramids must have been there for much longer than 11, 6,000, 4,500, 11,000, or probably 30,000 years ago. I think like 35,000 years ago they were built. Okay,
Hmm.
so that brings everything to question, because we build our understanding of when the first civilization came to, like a proper civilization, Sumer civilization came to exist, you know, 6,000 years ago. We build our culture, our religion, our understanding of the world and the universe based on that understanding, and based on that thinking. So right then I knew that, you know, whatever those structures are, and I couldn't, for me it just, I couldn't understand and I couldn't comprehend that they could only be designed and built to that, with that precision, to create free energy. For me there was something more, there was something more there. And I was trying, and what I saw straight away when he was explaining it, and he was explaining the about like what the function those shafts have, and the nuclear control, nuclear explosion within the king's chamber, then gas being ionized by the electrons coming through the northern and the southern shaft of the king's chamber. And I was thinking, you know, they build that with the specific purpose, you know, and I felt like I want to find out what the purpose, because if I found out what the purpose is of that, I would be able to answer, possibly at least partly, you know, when that first civilization um, you know, existed on the earth, and when
Hmm.
the pyramids were built, and what the real function of them is, you know. So that night everything changed, you know. And for me, all I could see when I looked at those structures was, I didn't see them anymore as a tombs or as a stone structures. I could see geometric structure which is able to generate huge amount of energy and transform this energy into something, and I wanted to know what. So all I saw was E equals mc square, and that's what
Hmm.
I described in a book, because it's the equals mc square describes how the energy is being how the mass is being converted into energy, how the energy is being converted into mass. Okay, so what I've understood that moment, when and I was, remember, I was standing in my kitchen, I was cooking dinner, I was listening to the podcast and watching the podcast, and it just, I felt like, you know, my the whole world just kind of turned upside down for me. I was thinking, like, they understood the quantum mechanics, they
Hmm.
understood general relativity, and I couldn't, for me, that I couldn't like even comprehend that Egyptians, even though that they were around for 3,000 years, that they really understood the physics to that level, you know, and that they had that advanced, sophisticated machinery to build, and tools to build those pyramids. Okay, and that's how it all started. You know, what unfolded straight after that was out of ordinary, was bizarre, and I've described it in the book. And I, for a very long time, been very hesitant to even talk about it. And I didn't, even writing the book was, I kind of knew that I'm gonna expose myself to humiliation and like who he is to even come up with those conclusions, and with those ideas, and but what happened right after that proved that what I kind of the dots I connected and the connections I've made in my head were right. And right away, which the things has changed so much and changed so rapidly that I knew that whatever conclusions I came to, during this listening to the podcast, they are correct. And it is something has put me on the journey of discovery, which then led me to write the books and kind of put me through all the situations and weird, out of ordinary events which happened in May and June 2024, basically.
Mm, right. Well, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've looked a lot at whether it be the pyramids or looking at other structures around the world. Like I remember, I've always been very fascinated by like the old. Like I went to Paris, right? And this was also when I was in college. I went to Paris and I remember being blown away by the architecture, right? And in the back of my mind back then, I wasn't really on this path of questioning, like how the heck did they build like the Cathedral of Notre Dame, right? Or the archway, right? That's right in the center of the city, right?
Mm,
And so I've
mm,
always been fascinated by old architecture. And I think a lot of the architecture that we see in certain cities too, I mean, you can kind of trace back, Tesla talked about energy technology, and there's theories
mm,
about these buildings being able to be conductors of um, free energy based on the
mm,
same principles of the pyramids. And to me, it goes to show you that if we look at our society today, you kind of question whether we're advanced or not. I think we have this notion that we are the most advanced civilization to walk the earth. And I think in certain aspects, maybe we are the most, um, I don't want to say the most delusional. That's not where I'm going with this, but in some aspects, we might be the most delusional, but
yeah.
I think we have maybe the largest, maybe we've built the largest structure and there's the most people and we've created the biggest vast global economy or things of that nature, right? But in terms of advancement, I like to think of that idea as like if we were advanced, we would truly be living in the principles that we were talking about, where
Mm,
we are harmonious, where we're not
mm, mm,
destroying one another, we're not destroying the
yeah.
planet, we're actually
Yeah.
creating something. We're living with purpose, we're living with meaning, we're kind of connected to our roots. And
Yeah.
what are our roots? I mean, that's an individual question that I've
Mm,
sat a long time with. Like, what are my roots? Not just me, Evan McDermott, being born in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm come from this and this, and this is my family history, right? This is my roots trace back to Ireland, right? My ancestry. I'm talking like, what are my spiritual roots as a soul? Like, what is the deeper implication of life, right? And I
mm,
think
mm,
if we were truly advanced, we'd be living in a way that is truly in alignment with asking those questions and being guided by those types of questions. Um, and I tend to believe that, something like the pyramids, they, whether or not an ancient civilization was living in alignment with that, we might never know the answer fully. But I don't know if I really believe that something like that could be a blueprint to the true origins of who we are. And speaking to that level of resonance, I almost tend to believe they had to be living in alignment with that in order to build something of that capacity, right?
mm,
Like
yeah.
to me, it makes me think that there was some sort of civilization, whether it was human or not, maybe it wasn't even like modern man as we see it, but there were some sort of beings or people here that were guided by those types of questions to leave such a
Mm,
clue behind for
yeah.
the future. Like they almost
Yes.
had to be living in alignment with those principles. So I tend to
Mm,
think we're not the most advanced
mm,
because we can't even we can't even begin to replicate something like that. And a big part of the scientific method, from my understanding, is that for there to be a true breakthrough in science or in and really in any field, you need to be able to replicate what you're doing, right? And
Mm.
we can't replicate pyramids. We can't replicate a lot of these old cathedrals in terms of architecture.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we can't even begin to comprehend how to do. I have one of my best friends here in town. He's a carpenter, right? And him and I talk about this all the time. And he agrees. He's like, we can't even begin to comprehend how we would like build something like that. So how are you gonna say that this was done with like, you know, how was the pyramids done in Egypt, put together by a bunch of slaves moving, you know, moving 2 ton
Mhm.
blocks, you know, on
Mhm.
their backs, putting it, you know, because that's kind of the story they tell us about the pyramids of how they were built. That's the accepted narrative. And, you know,
Yeah.
so to me, it is a blueprint, I think, for our past, what came before us, but I think it can be a guide to the future as well if
Of
we can
course.
really, you know, kind of take a deeper look at it. And maybe that's the meaning of it. Maybe we're not fully meant to discover the past in that way. And we almost kind of have to accept, like, at least the structures that we're living in right now, they almost kind of prevent us from really getting the truth about the past. And maybe there's not a full record of what that even was, but we can at
Mm.
least get a glimpse and kind of use that to create a more meaningful future. And maybe that's what this path is all about. And maybe that's what was predetermined for us and why they were left. I don't know. It kind of comes back into the
Yeah.
free will question.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if they left. I mean, maybe they left. Maybe they got destroyed. But however, I think at some point, doesn't matter how harmonious that civilization was, it got kind of something must have happened. And I
Hmm.
don't think that flood, which is described in the Bible, I don't think. I think it might be a story of something which happens repetitively over like after like every 10,000, 13,000, or maybe 20,000 years. It's a cycle. Okay.
Hmm.
And this cycle leads that the civilization until they reach some spiritual awakening, and they able to unite as a whole, and that cycle keeps repeating itself. So it's a cycle of rebuild and destruction, rebuild and destruction, and I think we're heading towards that edge now, when we have so many disputes, we have so many disagreements, we cannot communicate with each other, we are divided by access to resources and religious beliefs, and those religious beliefs which meant to unite us, that original idea of spirituality and religion, it became something which divides us even more. And we are totally divided by access to resources, and invading other countries, destroying other countries, destroying people's lives, destroying people's homes, and just not having complete disregard to humans life, and because we just behaving like a kind of like a viruses, spreading to one environment to another, consuming it, and using it, abusing it. And now we're thinking about expanding that environment, that civilization we created here, to other planets. That's what Elon is doing, and it's a great idea, and stuff like that. But let's just address those differences first here on our planet. If we cannot agree with our neighbor, if we cannot agree within our family, with the family members, how we can even comprehend, like, moving on that mess onto other planets, and other universes, other galaxies. It's just, we have to be able to agree here on our planet. We have to look beyond our differences, we have to look beyond our religious beliefs. And I don't think that there is an argument there regarding whether there is a God or not. I do believe there is a God. There is a creator. I call it creator.
Hmm.
Something has created. This world is too perfect. It's too beautiful. Life is too beautiful. The gift of life we have is something amazing. I go out for a walk with my dog, and I experience the nature, and I feel in harmony with the nature, and that's what I really feel alive. I sit on the ground, I ground myself, and those moments when you connected to the earth, and you're in harmony with the earth, and you feel the energy of the earth, are so special, and I was wondering, when I was working with my friends on the Quantock hills in the woodlands, around here, I was wondering why there's no more people doing that, because they cannot understand it. They're so busy. Why we don't see it? Because we're too distracted. There's too much noise. You need to be able to reduce the noise. That's when you can really listen to your inner voice, and you can hear it there. You can hear the guidance. You can see the path unfolding in front of you. But there should be more people sitting there on that grass. You know what I mean? More people. Why there's no more people sitting there? Why they cannot appreciate the beauty of and the gift of life we have? And we just see our differences. We just argue. We create those artificial conflicts. We fight for resources. We fight because we have different religious beliefs, and until we understand those issues, and we're going to be able to address them, I don't think we're going to be able to get out of this planet. Not in the form, that biological form we are in. Maybe the AI robots will leave the planet. Maybe then artificial AI wars will be created. Maybe the biological life, the beauty of biological life, and its connection to higher consciousness, maybe it will disappear. Because we're going that route. We're heading that route. We're moving away from what. That our deeper understanding and connection to the universe, and it scares me. It terrifies me when I see that, and I think that journey for me, it's just been, I'm observing. I've been like very good observer from a very young age, and I've been like observing, and I'm not perfect. I'm far away from it. I've made my mistakes. I have my flaws. And I'm not the person to preach, to give people advice how to live, because I made so many mistakes in my life. I'm a human. I made so many, but I'm trying every day. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying. I self-analyze myself. I think about how I talk to people, what I think about people, because all of it is energy. Like Tesla said, it's energy, frequency, and vibration. You create that aura around you. That aura is a toroidal field. It's a magnetic field. But that magnetic field, aura, whatever you want to call it, affects the reality and creates the reality around you. And that's what is encoded in those pyramids. That's the principle of harmonic resonance, that your energy, your frequency, and your vibration affects the quantum field around you and builds your reality. And then that, you can scale it up. So it's me as a human being, my energy affects environment, affects my wife, affects my children, energy of the cathedrals, they like the churches, they've got the resonators on the top. In England you can see that, and I've been driving around and watching. They've been built with the same principle, the principle of harmonic resonance, energy, frequency, and vibration. When they built, they understood that principle. They understood that the energy of the people inside that building, inside that structure, amplifies itself, and then via invisible quantum field connects with the other tower, the other cathedral, and that forms a grid. Which surrounds the whole earth. And back then, because they believed in the, and that's what united people back then. That energy united people. We're moving away from it, and moving away from religion and principle of religion, which then divides people. Maybe is a good thing, but there's nothing which connects us anymore. A part of internet,
right?
We're moving away from our connection. We're not connected anymore. And we can speculate about this. Like I said, who built the pyramids, whether there's other civilizations out there, whether there are alien civilizations, whether there are other planets which can host life and stuff like that. We might not be able to even answer those questions. But what we have power of, and we have the power which we have, is to change the environment and create energy, positive energy around us, which then affects different people, and affects probably via quantum field, resonates across the whole universe and multiverse, and they can feel it. They could feel my energy, because I was crying in a bed. I was desperate, and I was asking for answers, and the universe created for me opportunity to write the book, and created me. But it was the process of it was so scary, and I didn't understand what was happening, because you live normal life. I'm a driving instructor. I my life on a like day my on a daily basis looks like this. I go to work, I come back from work, I spend time with my family, I take my dog for a walk, I have a dinner, I watch Netflix, I go sleep, and then the cycle repeats itself again in the morning. Okay, and when something out of ordinary happens, you know that this is not what you're normally going through. And then you're trying to initially you're trying to comprehend: is this what is really happening, or my mind is make? Am I going mad, or
Mm-hmm.
is it? So that night, on in June, in May 2024, that night when I after I watched that podcast, and I tried to make those connections and stuff like that, and I was lying down in my bed and thinking about this. I couldn't fall asleep. Eventually, I've drifted away, into a deep sleep, and I think it was around 2 o'clock. I feel like something is bending my bed, like a mattress. I used to live back then. I used to live on my own. I mean, with my brother. My brother was renting room in my house, and my wife, my current wife, used to live in some different property. So I was lying down in the bed. I was asleep, and I feel like the mattress is kind of folding and bending on one side, and almost like something was walking on it,
Mm-hmm.
and I could feel the pressure, and I was like, and all of a sudden I was half awake, half asleep. Something lifted me off the bed, and it took me on some journey through the, I don't know, I could see, like, almost, it felt like a sky, night sky, but it was twisted and bended, and I could feel like that thing lifted me off the bed, and I wasn't sure if that was me being lifted off the bed, my physical body, or just my astro body was being lifted off the bed. And it took me on a journey, and it showed me uh, some civilization. I was floating above some planet. It almost looked like the Earth, but it was different. It was glowing. It was glowing, like it was lots of, like, crystal buildings, and there were like some beings I could see from above. There were some beings walking there, wearing like a white robes and stuff like that. And most of them had, I think, from what I remember, all of them had their heads like bald completely, like, so you couldn't hear you couldn't see any hair on it, like that. They were like, and there were like golden peaks everywhere, and crystal buildings, and there was lots of green area as well, and some water, and everything, like, geometrically, it felt like perfect, like aligned with each other, and in a harmony with each other. And we were floating above that thing, and I was just wondering, as we were floating about it, I was thinking, is this a picture of something from the past, or something from the future? uh, I I was very confused about this whole thing, but then I woke up in my bed. I landed back in my bed, and I was like drained in sweat. I was like terrified. Was this just a dream? I was thinking. When I woke up, I was just a dream, or did that happen for real? And how this was connected to the podcast I watched, like, the night before.
Mm-hmm.
I started thinking. So I would probably not think much about the podcast itself, and I would not think much about that, let's call it a dream or the vision or whatever it was. But the same night at 4 o'clock, I got awakened again, and I was kind of start writing things in my notebook, my diary, without even looking at the pages. I was writing things down, and I couldn't remember that. When I woke up in the morning, I read through all of that. It was just lots of information, like, it was like things, like some things about, like, topics I never even explored, like Anunnaki,
Mm-hmm.
Anunnaki. Uh, uh, there was some things about, again, about energy, frequency, and vibration, and Serapeum of Saqqara, and stuff like that. And all those topics, I never even been too much interested in things like that, or even connected them in any way. So in the morning, I just kind of, I had to leave it behind me. I had to go to work, and I went to work, and I was thinking about this, what happened last night. But I felt really energized. I felt like something inside me changed. Something inside me changed. I could feel like I've got, like, I was almost on the on the mission. Like I got some boost of energy, and
Hmm.
that dream or whatever, that vision felt so real that it put me on a journey of discovery. But I didn't think much about it throughout the day because I was so busy until the next night when the same thing almost happened, and I got awakened like twice every night over 2 weeks, to the level when I was exhausted. And I was writing things down every time when the channeling, I call it channeling,
Hmm.
happened. I was writing things down in my diary. So like maybe like 30 pages in my diary. Was like writings about like how everything in the universe is connected. How to communicate that knowledge with people, what's gonna happen after that, how it's gonna affect the reality and people, in on our planet. During the time, many bizarre things started happening. So initially I thought that I was just going mad, that everything was happening in my own mind, and I didn't share that and I was very cautious about sharing it with anybody, because I thought that they're gonna think I'm just losing it completely.
Hmm.
All right, so when things like this happen, like you think like you're losing your mind. That's the only thing you can think about. Something weird is happening and you're losing your mind. So one day we went to, when this was all happening, I was very exhausted, and we went to Quantox, where we usually go with Quantox Hills, where we go for a walk with the dogs and my family. We go there every day, and we experienced something that was first out of ordinary experience. And uh, basically, there's a lot of horses running around, like wild horses, and those horses, they usually very like scared of people. They don't approach people. We went to the different part of Quantox, where we normally go, and that part of Quantox had like a little, on the top of the hill there was like a little pond, which
Hmm.
was very weird place for the pond to be in the first place, because usually they would be at the bottom of the hill, not on the top of the hill where the water accumulates when it runs down the hill. So, and there were those horses gathering there by that pond. And as we sat there on the grass, those horses gathered around us, and I realized that one of the females was pregnant. So, and they gathered around us, they made like a circle around us. And and that was very weird experience, because I felt like, why they are trusting us, and why they let us inside that circle. Why they kind of accepted us it was kind of bizarre feeling, because they never done it in the past. I've seen many horses there, and they usually
Hmm.
stay away from people, like I said. Minute after that, my daughter shouted, like, daddy, come here. And one of the females started to give birth. She started giving birth to the pony, and we were sitting there experiencing like that pony was coming uh, out of that big horse, out of the vagina, and and that miracle of life, and we were just staring at that miracle of life happening, unfolding in front of us. And I was stunned by it, and I just they were, it almost like the universe was trying to communicate something with us, that this place or whatever was happening at the time in my life is something special. And I felt like almost responsible to protect that scene, like, and just to make sure that they are safe. I felt like we this been kind of put in front of us for a reason, like just to see the miracle of life, to appreciate the miracle of life. And I was watching it with the tears in my eyes.
Hmm.
Now, this is quite a long story, so I'll need to continue now what happened after. So as you're experiencing it, you feel like, we were buzzing, going down the hill, heading back to our town. We were buzzing, like we were so happy, and I felt like I was privileged. Why, that we were able to experience something like that. I felt privileged. So we went back to the town, and we went to the shop, and usually on Sunday, and we used to like leave a car in front of the shop where it's like a single yellow line,
Hmm.
um, where you cannot park during the week. You
Yeah.
cannot park there during the week, but we on the Sunday you can park. And as I went to the shop, my daughter stayed in the car, and she called me. She started shouting from the car, daddy, come over here. And the warden was standing there and writing me a ticket on the Sunday. So you see the connections in a minute as I was continue explaining it. So I was writing me a ticket, and so I approached him and I said, "What's going on here? And I was, what are you doing? Does it look like?" He say, and he was like, his face and his eyes were like evil. You could
Mm.
see that there was something about his face, and the way I understood it, is that moment, that the miracle moment which I've experienced a second ago on that hill, is being spoiled by that evil thing, and is trying to trigger me, because everything during that time was trying to test me and trigger me in a way, and it's trying to divert me away from that path, from that journey of discovering what it is, and eventually writing a book. So this guy started writing a ticket, and I said, wait a minute, it's Sunday, you're allowed to park on a single yellow line. And he was like, he got like, oh, all right, okay, but you cannot park here during the week. You're not allowed to park here. I said, yes, but it's Sunday, so I'm allowed to park here now. And he said, oh, I never. He just tried to make himself look like a victim, because there are lots of people gathered by then around us, and they were listening to that conversation, and he was trying to make himself look like a victim. And he said, oh, no one ever approached me that way in this country, and no one ever been so rude to me. I said, I didn't say nothing. What are you talking about? I just said that, you're giving me a ticket, and I'm allowed to park here it's Sunday, and the anger. So you got that experience of evil, and experience of like some spiritual of miracle of love experience, and on the same day unfolding in front of you, and you feel like those evil forces, they're trying to spoil something, that good feeling, that good energy, they're trying to spoil it, they're trying to trigger you.
Mm.
But again, you could say this is a very common thing that could happen. You don't want to make any connections there. One of the days I was I came back from work, and I was trying to still figure out. I was very confused about this whole thing. What was going on? Why I can't sleep? Why this channeling is happening? What is that writing in my notebook? I was trying to put pieces together and make a sense of it, And then you've got general relativity, quantum mechanics. You've got Serapeum of Saqqara. You've got Anunnaki. You've got equinoxes and solstices. All those topics, in trying to connect the dots and make a sense of it. One day I came back from work, and that's when the things started happening during the day. So from the nighttime channeling, the things kind of, and when I was questioning whether this is all maybe happening in my own head, things started happening during the day. So I came back from work, and I was putting clothes into wardrobe, and all the windows were shut and the doors were shut. And I've got like a little statue which I've got from my daughter for my birthday one year, and that statue, like a statue of the dog, which was on the window frame, was sitting on the window frame, and it says number one dot.
Mm-hmm.
And that statue, as I was putting clothes, it was behind me on the window frame. That statue fell down from the window frame, but there was no drift of the wind or anything like that. So I looked behind, I heard something falling. So I went back, and I just picked it up and put it back in a place. And I went back to the wardrobe, and I started folding my clothes, and that thing fell down again from that window frame. So I was like, what's going on? And then I went back and picked it up, and it fell down third time. At this stage, I was confused, to say the least, and trying to figure out what that could possibly mean. What they trying to tell me, be the number one dot. And I always felt like, during the time when my daughter was growing up, that I felt like I didn't spend enough time with her. I was too busy working, and just trying to make a living, trying to commit, trying to provide for my family and stuff like that. What they trying to tell me, or are they trying to tell me that the messages I'm receiving are from number one dot? I was trying to figure out
Mm-hmm.
what was going on. But again, you're not paying much attention to. You think that you don't want to overdo it in your own head, over exaggerate it, and trying to make some connections with the connections that are not there. But then another thing happened. So on the inside of my window blinds appeared uh, like a patterns one night, and those patterns, they kind of look like a cluster of stars or neurons or something like that, like
Mm-hmm.
all across the window, like the window blinds, like on the inside of the window blinds, and they blue, and those patterns are white. They're still there in that other house. So I was like, what that's supposed to mean, and what they're trying to tell me. Now, one day I was driving back from work, and so I'm trying to just describe what those synchronicities and out of ordinary experience. I was driving back from work, and it was very cloudy and windy day, and I was driving through the village, one of the villages back to my hometown, and I saw like a pyramid shape on the sky, like
Mm,
almost like form of the sunlight coming out from one hole. It looked like exactly like a pyramid shape.
mm,
And I was just, and I, as I was driving, normally as the sun moves, you would at some point lose it. So you would lose the track of it. It would just change the position, but the pyramid persisted. So as I was following it, I realized at some point I was getting close to my hometown that that pyramid was still there. It was kind of in front of me. So, and I was so exhausted at this point that I thought maybe I would just leave it. Maybe it is just like it's just the beams of light coming down through the clouds. And maybe it means nothing. And I would just go to gym and I would try to kind of recover from the stress of that day and stuff. But then I follow it, and it led
mm,
me exactly to that hill where the miracle of life happened a couple of days ago.
mm,
And as I drove up that hill, and there's a car park just below, so you're going up one hill, and then a very steep hill, and then there's a car park at the bottom of that hill, which then it takes you to that next hill where there is the pond where we saw the pony. So as I got to that car park, usually around 4 o'clock, that car park is full. There's lots of dog walkers. There was no one there. All I could hear is the wind whistling, and there was the weather turned really nasty, and the raindrops start like falling. Something told me inside that I have to leave all the electronics behind me in the car, and I start walking up that hill. As I start walking up that hill, at some point I felt like a rustic kind of noise coming up, and all you could hear is the whistling of the wind. And so I turned sideways, and I looked down that hill, and I could see like a Bristol Channel, like the sea. You can see from the top of that hill. And as I turned towards that Bristol Channel, I could feel coming from the top of the hill. I could hear that rustic sound. I cannot describe it in any. You cannot connect it to anything which you could possibly find in that place at all.
mm,
It's almost like out of this kind of world kind of sound. It almost felt like a robotic in some way, some kind of communication. I watched the movie Contact once with Matthew McConaughey and what's her name? I can't remember her name. The actress. Uh,
I know who you're talking. I
you
can't
know,
think of her name either. I know who you're talking about. I can see her.
yeah, but yeah. So that sound when the civilization, like alien civilization, tried to communicate with them, and that like almost sending some binary code or something like that. So that's how that exactly. And as I turned my head up, looking up that hill, I couldn't hear it all. But when I looked down the Bristol Channel, and so I was kind of, my right ear was facing up the hill, I could hear it again. It was loud and clear.
Hmm,
So I felt terrified walking up that hill. And at this point already, because all the things which happened, the channeling, not sleeping enough, all the writing, all the events happening during the day, and all the clues and synchronicities which I described in the book. When I was heading up that hill, I was convinced that when I get on the top of that hill, they're just gonna take me away. And they're
hmm,
gonna take me away, and they're gonna do something to me, and whoever is there waiting for me is going to take me away, and this is my last day on that planet, and that's it. That all of that kind of led to that moment. And as I went, I got eventually to the top of the hill, and I something inside me told me to lay down on the grass. And the wind was howling, and the treetops, you could see, I was seeing the treetops like they were moving, and it was like chaos. And all of a sudden, everything stood still, completely still, and the channeling has started. And it was like reassurance, that I'm on the right path. I don't need to worry, that everything unfolds at the right time, that I don't have to share that with anybody because people will not understand it at this stage, that the aim is to write the book, and everything will unfold from that moment. The message will start uh, like being channeled to other people and discovered by other people, that the message in the book is important. And I saw myself as such an insignificant person, and such a humbled individual. And I just couldn't understand why I've been trusted with this kind of task. Why is it me? And back then I couldn't understand. I didn't know that it didn't only happen to me, that people experience things like that worldwide. Okay, it's this channeling. It's happening to people worldwide. But maybe sometimes we are too distracted in the chaos of life to listen.
Hmm.
That's what the problem is, because we struggle so much with daily kind of tasks, with trying to survive. We are in constant survival mode, that we're not open to those messages. And during that time, that the May and June 2024, for some reason my brain, my pineal gland, attuned to those frequencies, which then allow me to listen to that channeling, which probably was the culmination of everything which happened in my life and which led me to that point. And the universe, the God, the beings, whoever is that, or maybe it's all one, listened to my calling, and it called me back, and created an opportunity for me to create the books. It gave me, what else could trigger me to expose myself like this and talk about things like that, to be humiliated? What else could trigger me to write the books? What I want from it, I want to get more money to buy myself another house. I don't want this. I don't care. I had it all.
Hmm.
I've got everything I need. I've got my family, which people around me that loves me. I have roof above my head. I've got food in my fridge, enough for me to survive. I don't need anything else. I don't need that attention. I'm
Hmm.
I'm a humble individual. So if someone would ever think that you're making this up, uh, or you're creating something which doesn't exist, and you're making those stories just to bring more attention to yourself, I mean, come on, like I don't need that. I don't want it. I never wanted it. I wanted to contribute towards collective awakening, and change, but I never thought it will happen this way. Okay,
Hmm.
and just being on the platforms like your platform and being able to talk about it, obviously I'm being exposed, and I went through the hell, and I didn't give up, during that time, during that difficult time of 2024, when my life got turned into ruin, to then rebuild it, and I didn't even write everything in a book, how this unfolded in the end, what happened, but my life got destroyed, basically, the things which happened in my life, you could only think that, you cannot even imagine, that things like that can happen, uh, to in your life. You cannot even imagine a worse dreams and a worse scenario, that things like that can happen. But eventually, kind of, it led me to write the book, and to be able to perform on those podcasts, and I just want to mention a little bit more about this, what happened because that was when I really started questioning reality, and it made me question everything. When I came down from that hill after the channeling, I felt really reassured, and stuff like that, and I felt motivated to continue, because I was almost about to give up at this point. I I,
Hmm.
I thought, I don't need that. I just don't want it. It was too stressful for me. So I was driving back home, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna now share this, even though they told me, do not share it with anyone. I'm gonna that share it with the whole world, because obviously I'm a hot-headed, So I thought, I'm gonna share it with the whole world. Why I should wait, write the book, and just do it step by step. I'm gonna share it with the whole world. I'm gonna start posting things on Facebook, on social media. I'm gonna contact everyone, and I'm gonna just spread the word, that we're not alone in the universe, that I experienced something. But then I was so naive, thinking that, who's gonna believe it? They're gonna think you're crazy. What you and I don't even know what I was thinking back then, doing things I did, but I knew that this was real.
Hmm.
And when I came back home, the weather turned really nasty. So the sky got almost like black, and the wind was howling. As I entered my house, my two dogs, were they were like shaking. They were sitting there and shaking. Usually they're very happy to see me. They were shaking, so they could feel some energy. Some energy was in the air, some bizarre energy in the air. As I was, so I kind of I cuddled them, and I went to, I went to prepare my lunch, and all of a sudden, I hear like a almost like explosion kind of sounds coming out from the outside of the house. Okay, like from somewhere, I don't know, from the sky, almost like a thunderstorm, but it felt kind of different, completely different. So I went outside the house and I stood on the grass in front of the house and I looked up on the sky. And then when I saw something coming from the south, like covered by it was below the clouds, but it was
Hmm.
covered almost in the cloud in a way. It was like a circular thing, like almost like a, I don't want to say spaceship because I don't even know what that was, because it was kind of surrounded by a cloud, but it was hovering towards the house from the right hand side, from the south. And I was observing it and I felt terrified. And the only thing which came to my mind at this point is to, and that's another thing which I forgot to mention, is that at some point during this whole channeling, in my phone, I had like 120 tabs open, which I didn't open. They start up opening, they open themselves
Mm.
during the night time and during the day, where it just kept opening themselves, and different topics, starting from, like, again, from equinoxes, Anunnaki, um, pyramids, all sorts of topics. And one of the tabs had Psalm 23. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I
Mm.
shall not want. It makes me to lie down in green pastures. It leads me beside the still waters. It restores my soul. And the only thing I could think about, as I was so terrified, as that thing was getting, and I felt, it didn't feel, the energy of it didn't feel like good. It did not feel like that energy on the top of the hill. It felt completely different. The energy of that thing, whatever it was closing to my house. And as I was watching that thing closing onto the house, and I start saying that prayer like loud, like the Lord is my shepherd. That's the only thing, because I've been raised in Christian family, so I thought the only safe place for me at this moment, in that moment, was God.
Hmm.
Even though I'm not even sure what the God is, exactly, and how to interpret God. But I start praying, and as I start praying, within like seconds, the sky, that thing started moving away, and the sky has cleared.
Mm.
But like, it cleared almost immediately. So from those dark clouds, like covering the whole sky, they are like almost like open and unfolded, and then the most beautiful blue sky appeared in front of me. As I looked up, something, and my interpretation of it was that there were stars.
Hmm.
They were heading up. There was lots of them heading up, like this, upwards. Not sideways, not downwards, upwards. And they were moving away, like moving away. I could see them moving. I could see, there was already at this stage, there was like, you could see the moon as well, and I could see, like in relation to the moon, that these things were moving upwards. All right. So I was just staring at it. And the funny thing is, when you, in the moments like that, when people record, things, in the sky and with their mobile phones, I can assure you, if something like that happens, you're stunned. There's
Hmm.
no way you're gonna grab your phone and start recording anything, because you just don't know what to think about it.
Right.
What is happening in front of you? How people can have a clarity of mind at this stage to grab their phone and start recording it? because
Right.
because I would not have I was terrified and I was confused by this, what was happening. So the only thing I could think about is, I ran back to the house and I called my brother, and as he got out of the house, I said, look up, just look at those things moving up. And as he got out, those things stopped in the same place where they were at the time, and they didn't move. And I was just, like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, and clearly, at this point, and he looked at that, and I said, do you see those like shining points next to the moon? Those stars are never there. I know the constellations. I stare all my life at the night sky, and this should not be there. And he said, I don't know what to think about it. Just leave me alone. I'm busy. So he went back to the house, and oh yeah, and by the way, what triggered me to get out of the house is that sorry, as I was in front of the house, my dog, my young dog, start like howling inside the house. As I forgot to mention that. So as that
Mm.
thing was closing to the house, towards the house, my dog did something like he howled like, oh. So he could feel the energy of that thing as well, and that thing, like him responding to, and the animals can sense things like this. They can sense some bad energy, and him responding to it that way, I knew that whatever that thing was, it was not that's the same thing which I experienced on the top of a hill. All right.
Mm.
And then whatever the other things were, which were moving upwards, after the sky cleared, those things, either some angels or some crafts or some beings, spiritual, I don't know what they were, because I cannot explain, I cannot name it. They look like stars.
Mm.
Those things, the way I interpreted it at the time is that they were there to protect me.
Yeah.
They saved me from whatever was coming to get me. All right. And I know it sounds bizarre, and I know it sounds unreal. And I was trying at this point still, I was trying to convince myself that I'm just, this is all happening in my head. I went back into the house, and I took a shower, and I thought I'm gonna share it all with my fiance at the time. So I drove. It was already dark outside, completely dark. As I got out of the house, I saw that the stars, or whatever you call them, were heading back. They were clearly heading back, and
Mm.
I could see them as I was driving. I could see like they were heading back, and the sky was completely clear. You could only see those shiny points heading back towards the earth. And I was like, what is this all about? Why is it happening again? So as I got out of the car in front of my fiance's house, I ran upstairs, and I said, I started shouting like, Malvina, just have a look through the window. See, she she opened the curtain, and then there was, in a space of 30 seconds, as I ran upstairs, and I told her to open the curtain and have a look. The sky, as she opened the curtain, was covered in a thick cloud, and you couldn't see nothing.
Mm.
Uh, and I stood there in front of that window, and I felt like something is trying to make a fool of me. All right. And whatever it's trying to embarrass me, it's trying to make a fool of me, or something like that. Or that's how I understood at the time. And then I kind of remember what I was told during the channeling on the top of the hill: do not share it with anybody, because people are not ready for it, and the right things happen. And I didn't listen. I just
Mm.
didn't listen. I got very excited, because I felt in a way that this is happening to me. I felt privileged, and I felt in a way chosen. What that is, this was like something special. But then it turned out that, and I found out later, that the hard way, why I shouldn't be sharing that with people in the later stages. I i i I've realized that, okay, this is just for my eyes only at this stage, and the things will unfold the way they meant to unfold. So many things happen after that, and in the meantime, which I think you probably need to make it more organized and not so chaotic, because I'm very emotional when I talk about it, and I realize it, because it feels almost like it's like it happened yesterday, and I
Mm.
remember it all like it happened yesterday. But there was so many things happening, and which then unfolded into something completely different, and it made my life hell, basically. um, all of it kind of felt chaotic, and I feel still very emotional about it, and I wrote it all. I wrote it, like I described it all in a book, and I think the best way to kind of comprehend it and to understand it better is to read the book. I think that's the best way to do it. And I know it's hard to believe in it, and I know that, you probably think that, just maybe you think, or maybe people who will watch this podcast will think, okay, maybe he's just, making this all up. Maybe he just created this reality which no one else could see, and no one else experienced, and no one else, it wasn't no one anyone else's reality, a part of his reality. But then many other things happened after that, which proved that everything which I was experiencing was real, and more than real. And it started happening during the day, not only during the night time. It was started happening during the day, and made me convinced that, it's more than real, more than real.
Hmm.
Which I still cannot answer what it was really. I cannot
Right.
give you exact answer because I don't know.
All right. Well, I think claiming it's this or that, it's a lot of times almost like we're speculating and wanting to know, right? Well, and I was gonna say, not hard for me to believe because I've had the countless on a couple aspects here. Like when I look at sort of my own past experiences and synchronized moments and things that are just beyond my comprehension, and you have those moments where you get that reassurance and and you can trust. At the same time, there are almost like certain aspects of life that seem to blow up and it turns chaotic and it's crazy
Mm,
and like in a way it feels like the walls start caving in on you. And I've always taken it in the sense where it's like, all right, I make all of these positive things are happening. Sometimes I think the you could call it the negatives, like they happen to you could say serve us. It doesn't always feel like that in the moment, obviously. But then when I look back at, changes that happened that were chaotic, well, it worked for the betterment to me get to where I'm at now and give me the perspective that I have now at the very least. Was it easy? No. Was it painful? No.
mm,
Or yes, would I wish it on anybody? No. Right? So
mm, mm,
it's like, all right, I can understand that like aspect of it. And I've
mm,
had countless experiences of things me and one of my friends here in town, we've done quite a bit of we've looked into a lot of Dr. Stephen Greer and he has his
mm.
close encounters, and he has his documentaries
Yeah.
and whatnot. And we've
Mm,
tried his methods of the CE5 of the contact and we've had, mind-blowing experiences. I mean, I've been out
mm,
camping by myself and, I was sitting there around a campfire just on the ground and the whole sky out of nowhere, I heard this like piercing helicopter sound, and the whole sky like became covered by this massive. I don't know if it was like a ship or a mother. It looked like a ship, right? But I understand. Like
right.
my first instinct was to not take out my phone and record it, even though it was sitting
Yeah.
there for like 2 minutes, right?
Mm,
Because I was so
yeah.
blown away by what I was
Mm,
seeing that I couldn't even comprehend. Like it blows away your comprehension of what you're experiencing. That all you can really do is like take it in and like
yeah.
experience it
Yeah.
and be present.
Mm, mm,
And it's like, I've had the same almost like I guess hesitate that there's I would share that story, but I'm also hesitant. And I had the same hesitation even when I started podcasting because it's like, I don't people are going to think I'm nuts. Like,
yeah.
these ideas and these experiences that we have, a
Mm,
lot of people are either, I think everybody is capable, like you're talking about, of like channeling and having these, spiritual experiences and connecting with energy that is not um I guess you could say normal. That's kind of out there. But I think people are just so distracted in their own lives and they don't almost have
yeah.
time to really think about these things because they are so caught in the trap of needing to survive and needing to focus, in the chaos of the world that a lot of times, I've dealt with when I first started podcasting. And there was a period early on in my podcasting that I was really looking at some global issues that were,
Mm,
some were conspiratorial in their nature. I was really questioning a lot of the
mm,
kind of the mainstream ideologies and things that were going on. And, kind of pointing out fallacies and like really, and, I didn't hold back. I'm like, what? I'm just going to be all out. I don't care. Whatever people say, I don't care.
mm.
But in reality, I did care because I lost a handful of people who I thought were close friends and they, character assassination and it felt like humiliation. I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
like, am I
Mm,
nuts? Like, why do these people hate me? Like, what is going on here?
yeah.
And I wouldn't
Why
necessarily
they
think
don't
that.
notice? Why they don't notice the same thing?
Right.
Why are they blind? They not. They don't have a capacity of feeling, like the emotional capacity or empathy to feel the pain of other beings, the pain of the
Hmm.
world. It's what you said is, I'm sorry for interrupting
Oh,
you,
you're
by the
good.
way. But the thing is, like, we think that we know so much and we experience reality the way we experience, and this is all we can see, and that's what it is. We don't.
Hmm.
This is a small spectrum of it. So no one can tell me and convince me what is real or what is not real. When no one is able to convince me that there is general relativity principles in place, or speed of light, or quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement communication, which is faster than the speed of light going on, because it's
Hmm.
both particle and it's wave. Okay, it's both. Is your observation, is your intent, which creates that reality. No one can, and the universe will show you at each moment in time, will show you what you are prepared to absorb, and what is easy for you to absorb, and it will show you the way which is the best way for you to comprehend. Okay, so no one can tell you what the reality is, because you don't know that, because this might be a image or reflection of the real reality. This is just like a mirage of it. It's like a reflection of this. So the fifth dimension is the subsystem, which I think, when for example, when they travel, they travel through that subsystem, which then they are able to bend the space time, the way which then using quantum entanglement allows them, and using particle acceleration, they open a space time, and they punch in and then punch out. They don't use the speed of light. Okay, we think that our reality is governed by the speed of light. That's why we're not going to go anywhere, because it
Hmm.
would take a lifetime. It would take 80,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri. We're never going to get out of this planet. We cannot get through the Van Allen belts, most likely, without getting radiation sickness and cancer. We are trapped here. Okay, this is not the way to trust to get through the from A to B in the universe. We need to find out how to control nuclear fusion, and that free energy is the answer. That free energy, nuclear fusion, free energy, particle acceleration, and then you open a space time, and using that five-dimensional subsystem, you travel from. That's what they do most likely. That's my interpretation of it. I believe that's how they commute from A to B.
Hmm.
That's how they can travel long distances, and it doesn't take them. It's almost like a quantum entanglement kind of based way of traveling. The information transfer, or consciousness transfer, or matter transfer happens instantaneously. So it happens like you move from A to B like this. It
Hmm.
doesn't take you. It's not governed by the speed of light. That's what I believe. And it's, who am I to even answer those questions? Who am I to question anything like that? Who am I to educate people, or preach about things like that? I'm not. But this is just my conclusions, the information I've gathered, and I wrote about it in two books. And the most important question is, how knowing all of that will change average human being life. Okay, what? So, and I think it all comes back to energy, frequency, and vibration. It's encoded in those structures there on Sahara Desert, and it's connected to the Serapeum of Sahara. That energy created by those pyramids got somehow transferred across the Sahara Desert through the obelisks, and maybe through the ether, and those stone structures in the Serapeum. I believe that um, they were like sort of during the solstices and equinoxes, when that energy was amplified, and it was transferred through the pyramid. During those moments, they were probably able to either transfer consciousness or matter, because the granite boxes have quartz in them, and the quartz is found in our pineal gland. So that amplification process, energy amplification process, when they were in those boxes, they were able to, via quantum entanglement or some quantum communication, they were able to connect with other dimensions. So those boxes were certainly not designed to bury bulls, apis, or anything like that. They were, the size of them is exactly the size, I believe, which would suit for that being to be in that box. And they were specifically selected individuals
Hmm.
who, for those ceremonies, and possibly some kind of priests, some mediums, who were able, their energy and the way they were able to connect with the energy of the pyramids, then created that harmonious environment. Maybe they were trained and specifically selected individuals. And just to explain, and or just even to think about the explanation like this, that pyramids were the tombs for pharaohs, or the Srapper of Sahara, the boxes in the Srapper of Sahara, designed with that precision, and containing, like, having being built of granite with the which contains quartz, just having that connection. And then you've got quartz in a king's chamber as well, which can create piezoelectric effect, and all that energy I believe is somehow connected. And I believe that, I didn't read about it anywhere. I made that connection myself because I thought, okay, now everything which is there, all the symbols, all the structures, they're not there for no reason. If they
Hmm.
build them, there is a purpose there. And I've described it in a book. I got into, like, deep into, because this became almost my obsession, because I just couldn't. When you experience something like this, you just cannot just leave it, and it changed me completely. You can't just leave it. You cannot just forget about it. It's too significant. It's too out of ordinary for you to just forget about it. You cannot.
Hmm.
You will feel regrets of all your life if you just left it like this. My curiosity and the way I've been all my life would never allow me to do that.
Hmm. Right, exactly. And I'm the same way. It's like the once you get a taste of the the truth and the knowledge and having these types of questions, it's like it's even if we go through life and go through the grind and go through the day to day and we kind of put it on the back burner, it's still there. We're still thinking about it, and the exploration almost has to continue, which makes me think in a sense maybe it might be comes back to is it predetermined that we are meant to explore and uncover this information in this day
Mm.
and age and bring it
Yeah.
to light and bring it to the masses in some
Mm.
sense. And whether that I've thought a lot about, they talk about like on the grand scale, like a great reset happening, right? And a lot of times you
Yeah.
equate that on a political sense with the World Economic Forum and, some of all the policies and things like that, right? But when you look at like the history of civilizations, or, are we at that 10,000, 15,000 year mark where we're due for a cataclysm or a reset or things of that nature? And we're starting to realize this, and we need to awaken on a mass scale in order to, I view on an individual sense, I've looked a lot at like one of the things you can do, like for your ancestral line, is like breaking ancestral trauma or breaking ancestral curses. Like I'm here to stop the cycles of my previous generations, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can
Yeah.
apply that to the collective scale in a sense too. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, we see kind of what the cycle is for us as a species, and we're reaching that kind of breaking point to where we build, we build, we build, and boom, we're going to destroy it all because we
Mm.
don't. But that's what
Yeah.
we've always done, right? And so I think maybe right now all of this is coming out, giving us the opportunity why we're having the experiences like we do, why we're interested in the topics that we're exploring,
Mm.
maybe part of that bigger purpose. It's not
Mm.
just for our own deep fulfillment of the exploration itself, which it does bring. I mean, I feel very fulfilled exploring things like this and uncovering truth and learning about who we are and having these spiritual experiences. But I think maybe part of that bigger purpose is part of that breaking that collective cycle so that,
Mm.
well, and once we break the collective cycle of build, destroy, who knows what's on the other side of that?
Mm.
It's tough to predict. It's tough to navigate. I mean, I like to think we could live in alignment with a lot of these principles that we're talking about of harmonious, resonance and having almost a life that is based in the understanding of energy and frequency and, choosing a pillar like love to build around. But I think it does take to break that cycle first. And I think that is,
Mm.
if you were to look at the mission on a collective scale, that kind of feels like, in a way, what we're doing. And I hadn't thought of it in
Mm.
that term, before, actually. Like that's kind of just came to mind now, but as I'm kind of connecting some dots here, that kind of feels like what we're doing. And what if we
Yeah.
were to try and put it into perspective, I mean, it's kind of difficult to do so because there isn't always going to be that answer to why are we doing this or what's the point? Why does it matter?
Mm,
But to me,
mm,
that's if you're to put it on a collective scale, that's why it feels like it matters because that cycle is very clear, and the danger is that a lot of people aren't fully in awareness of that very cycle. It's the same thing with
yeah.
ancestral trauma or ancestral patterns. Not aware of it until we're aware
Mm,
of it, and then when you
yeah.
see it, it's right there front and center, and you can't ignore it anymore. So,
Mm.
that kind of feels to me like what we're doing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think, like every change is gonna be difficult at the beginning, chaotic during the process, and then it's gonna be beautiful at the end, and that's what it is. It's never gonna be easy, and I what I came to realize as well is that um we talk about it now. We that goes, it goes might go viral, it spreads across the internet, and people will listen to that, they will relate to it, some they will laugh at it, they will criticize it, they would disregard it, they will dismiss it, but you don't even have to. When the energy is so strong and that energy is positive, that, and that's when that energy will be amplified, and the pyramid amplifies the positive energy, amplifies the energy of the earth. It is coupled with the earth, it is got dimension of the earth, and so whatever that structure was meant to amplify the energy of the earth, the collective energy of the earth, which
Hmm.
we create. So on the individual level, how what's got to do with me? Well, I mean, I can think what I want to think, I can hate everyone, and I can do whatever I want, I can destroy other people's life, and it's okay, I'm all right, I'm okay in my own country, as long as I've got everything I need in my life. Sorry, it's got nothing to do with other people, what I do, and I can use them, I can abuse them, I can destroy them. No, it's not, it doesn't work that way, and that the secret of the universe is encoded in those structures, that energy of one affects another, through harmonic resonance, through entanglement, and it's all connected, and we're not isolated here, and they observing us, the God is observing us. The aliens, the other civilizations are waiting for us to join them, to join that interstellar family, to awaken to our potential, to awaken to our understanding, spiritual understanding, and the fact that everything is connected, is not isolated, that action there's no action without reaction. Okay, that we by thinking, we think, our words, our thoughts, our actions change the reality and creates the reality real, and that's real as it is, because if you keep telling to yourself that you hate everyone, or you hate yourself, or you're not happy with yourself, that's the reality you're creating, and it's as real as it gets. If you start thinking positively, that's going to create completely different reality, it's going to create completely different world, and it's a fact, and it's as simple as that, and it's as complicated as that.
Hmm. Right, exactly. It is simple and complicated at the same time. That's what makes it fun, though. And I think as long as I found as we have that intention set to go about life with that change, I mean, there's going to be hiccups along the path, and there's going to be roadblocks, and there's going to be challenges. I mean, those are going to be forever present, right? But as long as we have that intention set, the path seems to unfold with that coming to manifestation, at least on an individual level. And I've seen how it works on an individual level, which makes me think that, if you and I set the same intention for the collective level, despite whether there's the free will or it's predetermined, there does seem to be how I interpret my reality to some degree allows that to play out in my own life. And so if I view it on a collective level and we have that vision for the collective, I tend to think we're going to create this type of change, and we already are. And it's going to allow us to kind of prevent, I would say, a global cataclysm and us destroying ourselves. And, to me, I have a lot of faith that we're going to be able to do that. So there's no fear of, I mean, I don't sit and actively worry about us, waking up tomorrow and boom, all the nuclear bombs go off and we're done, we're toast, and that's it. That's the end. I mean, I guess it could happen, but
It's one
um,
button away, mate. Is one button away.
right, exactly. It could
It's
obviously happen.
they
Um,
playing with our lives. They playing with the miracle of creation. And it's all about control. It's all about power. It's about resources, and it's such an illusion. It's about money. It's such an illusion. What would you do? What would you do if you were the richest person in the world? What would you do with this money?
well, if I was the richest person in the world,
You are Elon Musk now. What do you do?
I'm Elon Musk. I mean, I would look for ways that I could be of service and create positive change. And, I mean, I'd love to make it so that obviously you want to take care of people and you'd want to solve things like water crises and food crisis and like get people to their baseline needs. But I would almost want to invest and create like technologies and changes that allow people to reconnect with themselves and make it so that we're not. I'd almost want to find a way to entirely reshape society so that we
Yeah.
don't have to be in survival mode all of the time. We don't have to be working in a slave-like fashion towards something that has no meaning and find a way to actually live harmoniously. Now, I don't know how I could do that with money necessarily. I'd have to really think about it. Like I don't know if there's the proper what types of I don't know if organizations like that exist that are working towards that type of change. So maybe I'd create one, invest resources
Yeah.
into something like that. Um,
Would
but
people trust you? Would people trust you? Would people trust you? Wouldn't they think that you're just another person trying to take advantage of them?
and that's the
In this
difficult.
world, in this divided world where no one trusts each other anymore, we don't trust the information, we don't trust each other. Everyone is just divided, and the internet has divided us even more. Religious beliefs has divided us. Internet has divided us. We are divided by the skin color, by our like where you come from, from which country you come from, which skin color you have, what language you speak, what accent you speak, all those little kind of blockages which prevents us from connecting with each other and uniting are just artificial. We all one. That's how I want to
Hmm.
think about it. And not only all one as a human species, we all one with the nature. We all you have to see in the other being yourself is a
Hmm.
reflection of you. Okay, the enemy you fought all your life is created by your own perception of the reality around you, and you've been actually fighting all your life your own fears. That's all you've been, and your own beliefs. That's what you've been fighting.
Hmm.
This doesn't exist. It's your imagination, it's your perception, is perception of the reality around you. That's what you've been. So every fear you've got in you, every thought your the way you think about your neighbor, the way you think about your family member, the way you think about the other person, other human being, or other nation, or it's your it's your fears, that your experiences, your traumas, really. And you have to address. You look in the mirror, and you see that what you've been battling all your life, or what you've been, the enemy, the enemy you created in your own head is actually you. You are
Right.
your own enemy.
Right.
Okay, just address that with yourself. Address your own flaws. And then look outwards. Okay, and if you change your own energy, that energy via frequency, energy, and vibration via quantum field will affect the reality around you, and will create that amplify that create that positive change, which then will spread across the globe, across the universe. And I am naive, and my mom says that I'm naive believing in that utopian world. It will never happen. And I do believe that yin and yang is necessary in life, that we need. There is always slight patch of brightness in that big patch of darkness, and there is always the slight patch of darkness in the white patch as well, and it's necessary for it to be there. Okay,
Hmm.
it's not about destroying it, or making the whole thing white or making the whole thing black. It's
Hmm.
about the balance. And the reason why this is happening, I believe, and it's been happening, and it's happening all around the globe, and people experience things like that, and they talk about things like that. And I initially thought that obviously that was only happening to me, because I never even been interested in things like that, not from that point of view, and not looking at it that way, not from this aspect. But I thought it was only happening to me. I thought I was isolated in it. But then I started realizing, okay, now Graham Hancock talks about it. Christopher Dunn talks about it. This guy from Forbidden Knowledge,
Oh,
Billy
yep, Billy
Carson.
Carson.
So
Yep.
many people who are educated, who are well known, and who are very Joe Rogan, talks to many people, and I'm not, I don't know them personally, but I can relate to what they say, and I can, it resonates with me. It resonates with me more than any than I would relate or resonate with any politician, which is out there. Even though that I'm confused about this, who Trump really is and who he's trying to achieve. But at the beginning I liked him. Then I kind of, I got a bit confused about what he's doing. It sometimes scares me. But there are people out there who are very educated and very well known, and they have this kind of experience. It's not like it's isolated experience, or it's just happened to me and I've made it all in my head and I've been delusional about it. No, it's not. Just people don't. They scared to talk about things like that. They scared because they scared to be criticized, to to being humiliated. But if we, I feel like, with everything, if we don't, it's like with every aspect of life, if you don't do nothing, nothing is ever going to change. Nothing is ever going to change. So those voices are important.
Hmm.
They're necessary.
Absolutely.
we
I
need to
agree.
we need to change something, during, and that change starts from the uh small kind of thing, and then it amplifies, and as more people joins this, like this movement or whatever you can call it, as
Hmm.
more energy, positive energy we create. And during that nighttime channeling, one time I woke up next day and I saw a picture. I'm not gonna draw it today. I saw something like this. I'm not sure if you can see that properly,
Hmm.
but can you see that?
Hmm.
So so that's like, there was like a little circle, and it had love in, and I don't remember, I have no recollection of drawing it, but there was a little circle of love, and then there were arrows spreading outwards, and there was like another circle of love, and then with love in it, and that's how the change is created. It happens
Mm.
from one, and it
Yes.
amplifies, and then, and it that's how the reality is being created. All right. Just from that small little fire, that small flame, which then spreads and amplifies, and that's how the good thing can be created, and how that's how uh, the bad energy can be created exactly the same way. It is created exactly the same way. So it's all is up to individual um perception of the world, up to individual management of energy, frequency and vibration, what kind of energy we're going to create, and how that energy will amplify. And like I said, I believe that those structures in the middle of the Sahara Desert are the most, that's what the secret of the universe is encoded in those structures. And I wrote about it in details. Why do I think that? And I think that explanation, and how I connected those dots is very compelling, and it gives different view. It gives you different view, different perspective on that whole story, and it connects really well all together when you read it, because when we talk about it now, we jump from one topic to another. You have very interesting points, to say, and we could probably talk forever like this, and I've got
Easily.
some points I want to touch on, and then we kind of we jump from one topic to another, and it seems maybe a bit chaotic. And on top of that, I was trying to give you some short version of this, what happened, what I wrote about in a book, what happened in 2024, during May and June, and what happened after. But it's impossible to say it all, and it's never going to be enough time. And we probably could have a conversations like that, like 10,
Hmm.
20 conversations, and you would not be
I
able to cover everything. uh,
we could try. We
yeah,
could certainly
I'm
try.
I'm open to it. I'm open to it, mate.
I was
It's a pleasure.
I was gonna say, man. Well, we could definitely we could I think if um we're gonna have to have a conversation three because it just keeps continuing. It keeps going. We could keep going. Like I said, I think I said after the last one, like it would be easy to have a Joe Rogan length conversation. I mean, we're already at 2 hours. To go 4 hours on the subject, and there'd still be more to uncover, which is the
Yeah.
beauty of it. And I think, a point that you made that I wanted to, just almost reaffirm that I've been criticized before for saying change yourself and you'll change the world. Like and in a way, I get why people say it's naive. Like I get it.
Mm,
Sometimes I think it's naive. Not it's not. I don't
mm,
think it's fully naive, and I don't think it's fully like I think there's truth in it. But I understand why somebody might be resistant towards it. But I think it's the truth, because realistically, what can we change? We can change ourselves.
mm,
We can change the way we
yeah.
react. We can change the way we respond. We can change the way we look at things. We can change
Yes.
the way we treat others. And just by
Mm,
doing that, I mean, it's like this with this podcast, right? I mean, even with the last one, you can go and look. There's hundreds of downloads, people listening, like, because I get a lot more audio listeners than I do on YouTube, right? So the YouTube is only
mhm,
a fraction of the people who tune in. So it's like, the type of seeds that these types of conversations plant. I mean, if I were to go back and look at the things I've learned over the years from other podcasts, or like, you had the experience, you were listening to that Joe Rogan conversation, the type of
mm,
seeds that podcasts plant, we can't even begin to fathom like what it might
mm,
do for somebody who's
yeah.
tuning in. And I think that in
Yeah.
itself, I've always said if one person tunes in and they take one thing from it, that aligns them on their path, well, then it makes that makes the conversation worth having, and not just worth having. It
Yeah.
makes it necessary. It makes it a part of
Yeah.
the bigger picture, and that's always
Mm,
fueled me to continue doing it because I've had my moments where I stopped podcasting for a couple months at a time, and I always come back to it. I all like just because I'm like, and I think maybe those breaks at those points were necessary. Like I kind of allow the creative flow to go as it's supposed to in a sense, where it's like
mm.
if there's a month or two where I don't do one just because life has been so busy, I'm not super hard on myself about it, but I always still come back because there's always more
You
to
want to enjoy it.
right.
You want to enjoy it
Exactly.
as well. If you're not enjoying it, but those moments, I've explained. I had a recently student girl in a car, and she was very disappointed every time when she was making mistake. This is very personal thing to learn to drive. Like you are very emotionally kind of attached to the person who sits next to you, and you're trying to teach them. You can even try to teach your child how to drive the car, and you can feel the emotions and the stress
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So then you've got a stranger with you in a car, and you're trying to teach them something. And those people, the young people especially, they not nowadays, everything is kind of presented to them on the golden plate almost, and it's easy. They don't like it hard. They don't like to challenge themselves. Any discomfort, any obstacle in life, I just move back and I run away straight away. I don't want to have
Hmm.
nothing to do with that. Okay. So I at some point after, she made one mistake second, and she started crying, and it just all turned into mess, and I was like, we have to stop the lesson. Okay, let's just go have a chat, somewhere. We sat on the bench, and I had a conversation with her, and I said, you know why you're taking it so personally? Because you look at the mistakes, you look at those dark moments as a disaster, as a failure. Those moments of you being depressed, those moments of you being sad, are the moments, not the moments you are everything goes well and everything flows. The moments when doesn't flow, those are the moments you learn. Those are the
Hmm.
moments you improve. These are the moments in your life, the moments when I look back at my life, the moments I've been depressed. That depression, that anxiety happens for the reason. This is a teacher. Look at it that way. Nothing happens for no reason in your life. It's when you fail, it's for you to learn. It's a teacher. It's trying to teach you something. Okay, it doesn't try to teach you maybe how how to turn left or right. It's
Hmm.
trying to teach you why in the first place you respond the way you respond to any failures in your life, and why you think about those mistakes as a failures when in fact they are lessons. Okay,
Hmm.
and when we had that conversation, we got back in a car, different person. different
Mm.
person. She kept making mistakes. She didn't look at those mistakes anymore the same way. She didn't cry about them. She passed first time. She passed
Mm.
her test first time, and she's such a good girl, you know.
Yep.
And I'm just always trying to. I always put so much emotion, so much love into everything I do. If I could share my love and with the whole world and infect the whole world with it, I would do it, you know. And I would do it, and I would change it. I would change it, and I believe, I believe that, I've listened to a conversation AJ Gentle had with one of his guests. I can't remember his name, but he's some guy who is he's got some like degree in physics and stuff like that. And he said that our brain, that kind of resonated with me so much. Our brain cannot quantify nothing which
Mm.
cannot be possibly real. It cannot be reality. You cannot make anything in your brain which cannot be transformed into reality. Okay, so you
Mm.
thought about it, it's already there.
Right.
You have to just align with it. All right, you have to open the right door. So whatever I believe in, and my third book will end that way. We're gonna join the interstellar family. We're gonna unite as a species. We're gonna love each other, respect each other. We're gonna tolerate each other as we are. We be tolerant about different races, and we're gonna understand that we are all one. We are fracture of the one being, like little pieces of that one being. We're just trying to unite and
Mm.
just come together, and in all of us there is that piece of divine being, which and that gift which we've been given uh, to change the reality, to affect the reality in a positive way or the negative way, with our thoughts, our actions, with our words, with our vibration, with our frequency, with our energy. Just it all starts with you. It all starts
Mm.
with you. It's as simple and as difficult as it I just explain it, because it's very difficult. Because I
Yes.
make those mistakes every day. I'm no different than you.
Yep.
I wake up sometimes. I feel a little bit, annoyed with something. Something happened last night. Some electric bill came, or whatever. I had an argument with someone. And I'm trying to look back, and I try to analyze it. And I think, I didn't have to behave that way. I could, I maybe I misjudged it. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I could do a different way next time, and I will still make mistake. Eventually, that kind of leads to almost perfection. And you control your own impulses. You can control your own brain to the level which then allow you to create harmonious environment.
Mm. Absolutely. I gotta say, that's great. Like
Sorry.
fatherly. That's great fatherly like love right there, by the way. So I think that speaks to your like the natural father abilities right there. So kudos. And
Yeah.
I
Are
will
you
say,
your
man,
father as well? Are you a father?
I'm
Do you have
not.
kids?
So my girlfriend does have kids from a previous relationship. So I'm like have like they're not like my kids, but I like serve as the father role, which is interesting. So I mean, we're gonna we're talking about having our own kids in the near future. So I mean, it's coming down the pipeline, and it's interesting. I lost my father when he was fairly young, so I don't feel like I got to I'm always very appreciative of like strong fatherly presence because I had my father passed away when I was 19 at that age where you're like becoming a man. So he was around when I was a boy, but like that transition to manhood, you kind of lose that like fatherly like role model, right? And so you kind of I had to learn about becoming a man on my own in a way. And like what does it truly mean to be a man? So anytime I see like, great fatherly wisdom and like really what does it mean to embody like that like strong masculine presence in a healthy way, I always appreciate it and I learned something from it because I'm still, I feel like I'm still learning. Like I have no idea what it means. I'm getting a taste of what it means to be a dad, but I don't
You
fully
can be
know.
proud of yourself, Evan. You
Yeah.
can be proud. You've done really well in life. You can be really proud of yourself, especially growing up without father. To be have this kind of perspective and understanding of the world as you have, I think it's something unique. It's something to be proud of. And I really appreciate you, my friend.
Oh,
Really
thank you.
appreciate you. What
Thank you.
you're doing is so important. And I hope I will have a courage and determination to do the same thing, to spread the word. And I don't know what my actions, my goals, what I'm doing. I don't know what's gonna change in the future. I don't know if it's gonna change anything. Maybe it won't, maybe it will affect, maybe conversations like that will determine whether someone will commit suicide or they will not commit suicide. They will see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they will feel like there is a reason to live, and continue, and to influence the world in a positive way. Maybe that's what the reason of those conversations is, or maybe something else. I don't know. I'm just trying to use my intuition to follow the path, and sometimes I'm really struggling. I feel like we all carry our own cross, almost like
Hmm.
like a Jesus, and it's not an easy journey, and I've been struggling a lot recently, and I've got my own insecurities and anxieties. I'm no different than, and I'm not strong. I'm weak, and I've been fighting my fears and my insecurities all my life, and to kind of build that, the person I am now. People perceive me as a successful human being, whatever that even means, and strong individual, and I go to gym and stuff like that. I go to gym because I want to be healthy. I want to stay healthy. I want to prove to myself that I can still do it at 45 years old almost. I can still do. I've got that energy of a young person in me still, and I'm happy that the God gave me that. The Creator gave me that. But at the same time, I'm not. I'm weak. I'm insecure. I'm fearful, and I'm joyful, and I'm happy, and I'm grateful, and all of that. I'm no different than you are. I'm not. It's just different. I'm different image of you, really,
Hmm.
and a different image of a creator as well, which I believe there is one. I believe there is one. I would like to believe that. Otherwise, the life is meaningless. What
Hmm.
what what is the what are we living for, really? What is the purpose of that life? What we wanna get from it? What we wanna just get another car, another house? How much do you need to fill in that hole? Like Jim Carrey said, I wish everyone had everything they ever dreamed of, then to realize all the things they ever wanted, to realize that this is not it. It's not
Hmm.
it. You have to give. The giving part is the change. The creating positive energy is that part where you feel really fulfilled. And it does come with the price, and it does come with the sacrifice. You cannot think that people who are successful, they don't have any insecurities, they don't have any bad days, they only have happiness, because you see that in the movies and stuff. That's not true. That's not real life. That's not how
Hmm.
the world. That's not how the life is. Life is ups and downs.
Right.
It's ups and downs.
100%.
You cannot appreciate the sweet without the bitterness. You have to have both.
Hmm.
And you have to. That's how you have to educate the young generation. It's not going to be always easy, but when it's not easy, it's for a reason. You're going to get through it. It's a lesson.
Hmm.
Okay, it's going to be all fine. Okay, don't give up. Don't give up. All right, don't look for
Exactly.
answers. You need the answers now are not out there. The answers are, you have to look for that inner voice. For the answers are inside you already. You just have to listen. Open your mind to listen.
100%. Well, I see your strength, brother. It's there. And, I see it. It's like what you see in others is a reflection of what lives within. So the strength you see in me, it lives within you too. And that's what, I have the same insecurities in many ways where it's like, I don't feel strong or, capable sometimes, but, it's just, we keep going down the path. And I will say what you said about earlier about like embracing the world like with love and like with all the love that you have, I think all that you're doing, whether it be like coming on a podcast or like, putting information out there, or it's like those moments where, you're one on one with somebody who's breaking down in the car, that's you basking the world with the love that you have, even, regardless of what kind of format you're taking. I mean, that's kind of what I think you can be fueled by and putting information out there, right? And that's in
Mm.
turn what people resonate with and feel when they listen. So it's kind of like I kind of take the approach like I'd love to embrace the world with love. I feel the same way. And it's like, well, the world it's right in front of me in a sense. This is the world. Like this conversation, it's the whole world in front of me right now. That's where my focus
Yeah.
is. It's where my awareness is. So therefore,
Mm.
I'm putting it all into that. And I
Yeah.
think as we kind of do that moment to moment, it allows that intention and that idea to kind of come to life in a lot of ways. And I think you're already doing that. So I know you said you'd love to do that and the world would change if you could do it. And I think you're already doing it. So kudos to you, brother.
Mm,
I mean, I think you're already making a bigger impact than you realize because even the conversations that we have, they change me. There's things that you've said that I'm literally going to take and apply like today. I'm already like sitting here like having thoughts on my mind like, oh, I could use it. Like that's great. That's a great piece of information. I could relay that. I could do this. So I mean, it makes an impact, and I think you're already doing that, and the seeds are widespread of the type of impact that it has. So I mean, I think the
yeah.
path just will continue in that fashion, and the beauty of it is I think eventually all those seeds come to fruition, and I genuinely believe what you put out there you receive back. And, it's not about
Mm,
receiving recognition or
mm.
status or any of those things, but it's about
No,
the recognition of, I planted this tree. Wow, the beauty of nature and that this tree has come to life, and that here it is right in front of me. And so I think by doing what you're doing, you'll have that moment in those moments. And, they're probably already around in some aspects, in some fashions. Sometimes it's about how we perceive them too. So it's like, um, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out there because I love
beautiful,
having these
beautiful.
conversations. They're very they're they hit the soul, and it's rare to have conversations that really hit the soul in the way that these do. So,
Mm.
that it
Yeah.
makes me know we need to do it. We're gonna need to do a part three to continue the
Of
journey.
course, mate. I'm open to it. It could be even part 4 or 5. But listen, I just wanted to say uh, one more thing. That I feel like what you're doing as well. You already creating the same kind of impact. And you can feel it. You can feel it yourself. You know that what you're doing is important. The same like, and I can tell you, I could. I mean, I want to live. I love life. I just
Hmm.
love every aspect of life. And I appreciate the gift of life. But if I was gonna, I don't even know what to make of this. What happened to me in 2024? I know that this was special. I made of it whatever I at the time I thought the way I could comprehend it and my interpretation of it was the way it was. But at the end of the day, when you read the book, when someone read the book, and it's not
Hmm.
about me selling the book, when someone read the book, we realize that this is not about the pyramids, and it is about pyramids. It's not about uh, it's not about aliens.
Hmm.
It's not about ancient civilizations, but the true message in that is uniteness. Like unite the just we have to be able to find a way to unite as a species, and as we have to be able to do that, and that's the biggest message I think that that's the deepest message in that book, that we need to be able to address our differences. You need to look beyond those differences. You need to the religious beliefs, and skin colors, or races, like we have to be able to look beyond that. We that's the I think that's the biggest message, and how to achieve that. How to achieve that. Maybe I gave some clues because I received them through the channeling, how we can possibly achieve that, and maybe that reality, that idea which I described, maybe it's already materializing. Maybe it's coming to life. Because I do believe that those conversations, or that energy of one, is as important as in energy of collective. Okay, so, and if it's amplified, if it's strong enough, if it's intense enough, it can change the world. It can
Hmm.
change the world. That's how Jesus, and I'm not absolutely not comparing myself to Jesus. Don't get me wrong, mate. I don't want anyone to get me wrong. I don't think I'm not. I don't think I'm special, but I think that we all have it in us, all of us. And it's just like you have to just be able to discover it and be able to use. So it's like we talked about last time. There are two most important days in everyone's life: the day they were born, and the day they discover why. That's
Hmm.
what that why question is the most important thing. And what is the more important thing than just be able to make a change in, and to make. So you see, you walk on the street, like I went to Austin in last November. I went to give my book to Joe Rogan, and I went to his club, and you see those rich people sitting in the restaurants, and just outside the restaurant they eat during the day, they stuff themselves with all those, and it's good for them.
Hmm.
I'm not I'm, it's good for them. Do you got the money, but outside that restaurant there is a homeless person lying down on the street, and the whole city is full of homeless people, totally lost, drug addicts, people who are living in a different reality, fentanyl users, and you have that contrast, and how you can accept that as reality, how this can become your reality, and you just walk past them, you don't see that, or you the, I always say to my parents, what's the reason of me doing all of that, why I want to talk about, why I touch on those subjects, why I just can't just focus on myself, and leave the God to deal with all of that.
Hmm.
God will deal with all of that. No, we have to deal with it. It's our mess. God
Hmm.
is not going to change. The aliens are not going to save us. Come here and save us all of a sudden. Okay, have the power to make a difference, and you cannot ignore that. The fact that you cannot see that people in Africa dying of starvation, and they don't have drinking water, and the reason they cannot see it because you live in your bubble. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that, and I feel that pain. I cannot be dismissing it, and I cannot be blind to it. It doesn't
Hmm.
work that way, because you want to feel comfortable in your own country, in your own home, and you've got everything you need in life, and other person lives in completely different reality when they don't have nothing, and they don't even have food to eat or drink. I don't want to accept that as my reality.
Hmm.
I don't want that. I
Yeah.
cannot agree with something like that, and I'm going to be always angry about it.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I'm right there with you. And just I think having that awareness of what our mess is, I like the way you put it. That's our mess. And it's time, I think it's time to step up to the plate and have people like ourselves talking about it, dealing with it, trying to find solutions because the politicians aren't going to do it. The system isn't going to do it. It's what created the mess. So it's like, well, somebody's got to step up to the plate. Nobody else is doing it.
Mm,
And then internally we feel complicit if we see or know something and we don't act on it, we don't speak on it. So, because we're just kind of blindly accepting it in a sense. So, yeah, I think what you're doing, it is important for that reason. And it brings an inner sense of like, all right, I am doing something about it. Is it going to change the world overnight? I mean, of what I'm doing hasn't changed the world overnight yet. I'm not going to put the limitation on it. You never know. People might wake up and hear it and they'll hear the message and be like, "Oh, this is it," and it changes the world. I don't like to put the limitation on it, but in a sense, like even if we don't see the results of it come to fruition in our own lifetimes, we still know we planted the seeds to try and make a difference and make change and impact that awakening process. So, and I think that in itself is usually that's enough. You know what I mean? Like that's going to
yeah,
bring fulfillment. Um,
yeah,
but
yeah.
well,
We are all, just to say the last word, we are all the messengers. We are all the messengers. We are all of us, each of us is an image of the higher consciousness, in a
hmm.
form, in that material body, whatever, even if that is a complete illusion, in that spirit, in that energy, we are an image of that higher consciousness, and we all can, change and influence the reality around us. And that's how I see it, and I know it works that way. I can see it. One act of random kindness at the time, changes the whole world, and amplifies the change, so we all have to do it, and we have to do more, and I feel like you have to do more, and I don't want to feel over, like, feel like, come across like over dramatic, or over exaggerating things. I think it's just gone too far,
Hmm.
it's gone too far, and we are too became too blind and too dismissive of other people's pain and suffering, and I just don't like that. I cannot accept that. I never wanted to accept that. it's
Yeah,
not my it's not my reality. I don't want it. I feel their pain, and I always felt, so.
100%. I'm right there with you, brother. I feel like that's a good transition point into leaving the listeners where I know I we kind of spoke on it where they can get your book and everything in the last episode, but where would you send people to buy the book? I know it's on Amazon. I don't know if
Yeah,
I don't know if you have social media or website you wanted to send them to as
yeah.
well. I can put all of that in the episode show notes, but just kind of give listeners if they want to keep deep diving and they feel inspired where they can kind of find your work, where to send them
Um,
off.
I've got my channel now on YouTube, but I don't want to reveal because I want to talk to you about it, like maybe next time, or
Hmm.
maybe outside this kind of podcast. But I've got my YouTube channel now. But the book, which let's just focus on the book at the moment, and I will start obviously doing my own podcast, and I'll start doing my blogging, and then the message will amplify and it will spread even more, and hopefully will bring some positive change, just small piece of positive change, at least I hope.
Hmm.
But the place to look for the books is obviously Amazon, at the moment, that's where you can find the books. And I think that's the first thing, if anyone is interested in the message, my interpretation of what happened to me in 2024 and my journey. That's where you can find it. You can find it in those books. And I think that's the best place for look for it, for just to start with, I guess.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll put that in the episode show notes, and I encourage everybody to go pick up a copy. And Pete, I've conversation number two. I loved it. I mean, we just kind of dove right back in, and it's what's beautiful about this conversation. And I think I maybe mentioned to you after the last one, like sometimes I don't know if I mentioned it to you or not. Sometimes I don't like almost need to prepare for an episode because I know it's gonna flow. So I had an idea. I'm
Hmm.
like, all right, I know the theme, I know where we're going, but I didn't need to really prepare a single question or like make it
Hmm.
like, how make it a formal interview, if you will, because I knew we'd just go head first into it and be able to kind of articulate the themes just based on the
Hmm.
nature of our last conversation. So
Yeah.
super free flowing, man. It's such a pleasure to be able to chat and like connect and share the space with you. So I'm greatly
Pleasure
already,
of mine.
yeah,
Pleasure
all right,
of mine, mate.
already looking forward to the next one.
Yes,
Whenever
it will
that may be.
happen. It will happen.
Absolutely.
Yes. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the platform. And I really appreciate you, man. And what you do is far more important, or as important, as I do. And we all have the power to, just remember, we have to remember that we all have a power to make an impact. It's all in us. It's already in us. Okay. So that's how I want to finish this conversation. I look forward to another one.
Absolutely, brother. The feeling is mutual. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in as well. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Special thank you to Pete for coming on the Fifth Dimension. I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. Highly encourage you guys to check out his book, The Messenger, Spiritual Awakening, Higher Consciousness, and the Message of Unity. It is in the episode show notes below. I just love this guy. Fantastic conversation, fantastic dialogue. Really keeps me grounded and reflected to engage in conversations like this. Like, this is what it's all about. One of the better podcasts I've done in a very, very long time. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Go back, listen again, take some notes. I think there's more you can pick up from the show each time you listen to it. So, maybe share it with somebody who you think needs to hear it. And if you're a fan of the show, subscribe whatever platform you are on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can also subscribe on my Substack. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can book a one-on-one tarot reading. I've been posting tarot readings and subliminal affirmations every day on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe over there. Get you a little taste of the service at the least. Get some collective readings going. And Iron and Ether coaching is available. I got my personal trainer certificate. It's beautiful to see some fitness transformations going through it. If you want to start an application, it is in the show notes below. I invite everybody to get that process started. And I will see you there, and I will see you on the next episode. So long.